Electrifying sports talk from start to finish.
You're going wire to wire
with Diesel and Cole Bryson
on the Fan Upstate.
Well, college football is about to get a whole lot more expensive for those tasked with footing the bill. 4 former Michigan players are now suing for being denied the chance to make money off of their name, image, and likeness way back beyond the statute of limitations. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Cole Bryson. My name is Diesel. We got a special guest waiting in the wings, just chomping at the bits to jump in on this segment to talk about the 4 Michigan players, Cole, who want that bag.
Special guest, you say?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Wow.
So here's the story. 4 ex-Michigan players, including former quarterback Denard Robinson and wide receiver Braylon Edwards, have now filed a class action lawsuit against the NCAA and the Big Ten Network, seeking more than $50 million for being, quote, wrongfully and unlawfully denied the opportunity to earn money off of their name, image, and likeness. The lawsuit says the NCAA and the Big Ten Networks have systematically exploited their iconic moments that the players created during their careers at Michigan, and it is on behalf of those who played for Michigan prior to 2016. Why 2016? Why is that number important? Well, that is the cutoff. That is the statute of limitations as laid out by the House versus NCAA settlement that ended up with the NCAA agreeing to pay $2.7 billion to former players and players who are playing the game right now. This, Cole, is opening up a very, very dangerous precedent, and if this class action lawsuit is successful, this is not going to be the end of it. Players from Alabama, former players from Clemson, former players from all over the game are going to want to go back and get their bag because they were denied the possibility of making money while they were in school. Good idea, bad idea. How dangerous is this lawsuit if it wins?
Well, I would say the lawsuits, look, they're going to happen. And I can't blame the lawsuits here. I blame the entire NIL as a whole for not having any kind of rules or base or structure in it to begin with. And it's hard to blame guys for having lawsuits when, that's the name of the game. I mean, you're allowing it, so I don't blame them for having lawsuits.
Yeah, this is, essentially back pay. It's reparations for not paying college athletes way back before NIL became a thing. The date was set 2016 for a reason. It's in the lawsuit for a reason. Now, Cole, we're opening up to players who played in the 2010s, in the 2000s, in the 90s, in the 80s. I mean, it's not going to stop anybody. Any living player can now go back and claim NIL to whatever dollar figure it is that they want. And that's why this is so dangerous, Cole. There's essentially no limit to the amount of money. Once the precedents get set, if it gets set, there's no limit to the amount of money that the NCAA will have to pay out to former athletes. Look, I know that it's egregious that college athletes in the 80s, 90s, 2000s were not making any money off of their name, image, and likeness. I understand that they helped make their schools a lot of money. Yes, they got to reap the benefits of being a part of a program that was rich, programs that had the money, who could afford to give them all the things that student athletes get. And let's be real about this. An education holds value. I don't care what some people want to say, which is that, well, that thing doesn't hold any value. They need cash. That's earning potential. They increase their earning potential by being on rosters and being stars at these universities, and by hopefully going and completing a degree program, taking it seriously, and earning an education that would set them up for the rest of their lives. But, Cole, we're in a situation where untold amounts of money could be on the line for the NCAA. And, look, I know that their coffers are deep, but I don't know that they're that deep.
Yeah, we talked to Stephen Garcia last Friday on the show, and that's one of the interesting aspects of this conversation is how does it affect the former players, right? The players that are not reaping from the benefits now. And that's why I asked the question to Stephen Garcia on Friday. Johnny Manziel's talked about it a lot. I love hearing, and again, NIL's here. It's here to stay. There's no going back. And the lawsuits, I don't have a huge problem with them filing the lawsuits. If you're allowing them to get paid, they should get paid. I think it's fascinating, though, to go back in time and think, if NIL were in existence 10 years ago, with Tim Tebow, Johnny Manziel, Steven Garcia. You talk about the big name, Reggie Bush, even further than that. Man, you think this thing's wild now. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, it would have been the wild, wild west.
Yeah, there would have been a tremendous amount of money flowing around, and we bring in now our special guest, Rob Brown of The Rob Brown Show, who has been a long-time proponent of NIL. He loves NIL. Wild West, do what you want. Make the NCAA pay for everything. Sure. Rob, even you have to agree that this is setting up the NCAA to essentially go bankrupt for having to go back and pay all these athletes as far back as they're willing to dig these guys up and add them to the class action lawsuit.
First off, Diesel, I don't have to do a damn thing. I'll do whatever I want. All right. Let's start with that. No, listen, that is the old slippery slope, big fear. How appropriate the night after a presidential debate that Diesel's going into dealing with fear mongering about NIL. All right. He's trying to scare you with, but all right, I'm not doing all that. Listen, here's the thing. That's why all of these things are going in front of courts and going in front of judges, are going in front of people who determine what that law is. And I have no doubt there is going to be somewhere down the line, there is going to be a spot somewhere that a judge is going to say, no, this is the limitation. This is the limit. This is the line. If you played in 1952, the TV network money wasn't there. And I do think a lot of that's going to be, it's probably going to be scaled. This is just me, hypotheticalizing here. I think they're going to go back and it's going to be diving into what type of revenue were these schools making? And are we going to, and probably will, adjust for what the college football economy was at the time, right? Because I think even if you go back into, let's say the 90s, when I was a kid and when Cole Bryson wasn't yet a glimmer in his father's eye at that point, you go back to the 90s, college football was obviously big, but it wasn't anything close to the multi-billion-dollar juggernaut that it is today. And so when I hear when you say, a scholarship, you're getting a degree, you're getting room and board, you're getting this, you're getting that, that's all well and good, but can we keep it a buck? Do you think that the percentage of money that Jalen Milroe, let's pick somebody super, super over, right? The money Jalen Milroe gets, do you think the scholarship and room and board and all that, do you think it adds up to what Kalen DeBoer is making as the head coach? Do you think it adds up?
So look,
to what
you're guilty right now. You're guilty right now of pocket watching, right? You're guilty of saying that someone who is 18 years old, who is just learning their craft, deserves to be making the same amount of money as somebody who's devoted an entire lifetime to their craft. I just want to know from you, Rob, do you want college football to exist in the future, or do you want it to go broke? Because this thing has the potential to make it go broke. There's nothing that says that only now broke athletes who are not playing in the NFL, who didn't get that bag, like Denard Robinson. I believe he's playing in the USFL at this point for, I think, a bag of peanuts and a crisp $5 bill every time he rolls his helmet out there on the field. But there's nothing that says that Deion Sanders won't go back and say, give me my money. I know he's rich, but guess what? Rich people, what do they want? They want more money. So there's going to be guys who are star athletes who were mega stars in the 90s and the 80s and the 2000s. Sure, it can be adjusted for the time period and the inflation that's gone since, Cole and Rob, but it opens up to essentially no limit to the amount of players who want to sue and get that bag.
Again, why didn't we, if you and I and Diesel, Rob, the bottom line for me is if we're going to go do something tomorrow, or we're going to go build something or try to sell something or open a business, it might be a good idea for all of us three to sit down and come up with a plan. Hey, let's do this. Before we open the business, let's do this. Let's have this, on the back burner. Let's talk about these and set these rules and set these rules and standards, and think about everything that's going to pop up as we go along. What do we need to be cautious about? And you know what, guys, I just don't feel like that was done. Again, NIL as a whole, I don't have a problem with players making money. I have a problem with NIL being brought on the scene with absolutely no plan. That's my issue with it.
I will start with that and then backtrack, if you don't mind, to something Diesel said. Cole, you and I, and I'm assuming Diesel, I'm very on the same page for that.
Yeah.
Right? I completely agree. The fact that they propped this whole thing up, and they did, but that is the NCAA. both being cowards, A, and B, being feckless.
Yeah.
We have allowed the schools and the conferences to take so much power into their own hands that when it's time that you need the NCAA, they don't have any authority anymore, right? It's like when a principal at a school keeps overruling the teachers and the discipline they lay down. At some point, the students ain't gonna listen to the teachers anymore because it's clear they don't have the authority. So I agree with that 100%, and I really do. And at least on the show in the mornings, that's kind of the compromising foundation we've reached, right? Like a lot of guys like Diesel never going to come around to NIL. Guys like me are never going to say, no, I don't think players should have the right to use their name, image, and likeness. By the way, aside from college football, aside from it, remember, these aren't things that the school's paying for. This is the opportunity for them to go elsewhere with their name, their image, and likeness and make that money. But to circle back around, Diesel, when you said, oh, well, these guys, Kalen DeBoer, Nick Saban, they spent that's all well and good. When's the last time you heard somebody say, I'm going to buy a ticket to go watch Dabo coach this weekend? Literally never. You buy tickets to go watch the game. You buy tickets to go watch the players play. Nobody's ever bought a Dabo Sweeney polo. They buy Clemson jerseys, right? That's why this is that argument. So I would make the argument that you can accuse me of Perts watching, and that's fine. But I'm going to flip it around and say, in what world are you the guy who gets to say, I believe that your thing is only worth this, and so that's what you can't make any more than that because I said so? You're doing the exact opposite of me, but claiming that's okay and mine's not.
So you vastly underestimate the cult of Dabo Sweeney. And if you'd ever listen to the call-in show, which can't call into anymore.
What call-in?
Thanks a lot, Dabo.
The old text-in show.
There's people who call in and say, hey, Dabo, I just appreciate what you're doing with our boys. We're so glad to have you as our head coach. So I beg to differ that a couple of people aren't buying tickets just because they love and respect what Dabo Sweeney is doing for the institution. But here's what I want to know. What limitations can there be and should there be on how far back this can go? I mean, 2016 was set for a reason. I don't particularly know the reason why 2016 was chosen as the statute of limitations, but I guarantee you they didn't just write the number of a year every year on a piece of paper in a hat and stick their hand in there and pull out a number. 2016. Sorry, those of you who stopped playing college football in 2015, you're going to get nothing. I'm sure that year was chosen for a specific reason. And then what happens when family members want to go back and get theirs? What happens when, and this is tongue in cheek, but I'm not entirely joking all the way, what if the Goldmans decide to sue on behalf of O.J. Simpson so that they can get their cut? We know that O.J. brought a lot of attention to USC, good and bad, but what happens when the Goldmans say, hey, you know what, we're going to file a lawsuit on behalf of O.J. Simpson so that he can get paid so that we can sue and get our cut of that?
Yeah.
You talk about the absurdities of this because this is where these things go. It always goes
I think,
to the most absurd level.
I think it's a slippery slope. And again, when you talk about NIL, I think you, whether you're on the right side of it or on the bad side, the right or the left side of NIL, and I'd love to hear from our Tolos as well, 71307, start your text with the word fan. But I think we can all agree that there's a difference in players getting paid, getting compensation versus rather than the slippery slope that we're on that eventually will become players making more than the head coach. It already happens. We talked to Steven Garcia about that issue. He said the other day when I asked him about it, he said, I couldn't live in a world in college football where I had teammates making more than my head coach. And he said, I've heard stories of players saying, look, coach, I'm making more than you are. Shut up and get back on the sideline. If that's where we're headed, that's my cause for concern. I don't have an issue with players receiving compensation. I just don't like the slope that we're heading down.
And if this lawsuit is successful, and every lawsuit thus far has been successful and has gone the way of the student athlete, what's to say this thing just doesn't keep going into the more and more and more absurd levels of this thing and completely bankrupts the game? I mean, at some point, there have to be rules. And if every rule, as soon as it's made, is sued, struck down, and goes the way of the student athlete, this thing will continue to spiral to a place where, sure, you're going to see somebody rolling helmets out there on the field, but it's going to be a much lessened product, and I don't want that.
So I'll say a couple of things very quickly. Number one, that's how every business everywhere, anywhere in this country is. It's just how every business is. with every point that you made, right? Like, who's to say if you're starting a lawn mowing business and you go, I'm going to charge $100 for a lawn, and you got a neighborhood full of people that say, I'm going to do that, and then you start charging $150. There's a cap. There's a spot somewhere where the return on a price raise is no longer there. Cole Bryson, you know this as well as anybody, all right? There is a point where you cannot start giving out more money, and there becomes a point where schools, and I think your biggest concern here, if you want one, is that this is absolutely, without a question, going to continue to separate the big dogs from everybody else. But there comes a point where it is on the school to say, sorry, kid, you're not worth that much money. Somebody's going, I want $5 million a year to come play for your school. And it's good. It's going to come up to schools to go, we can't give you that. Not that we don't want to. We don't, but we can't give you that money, so I'm out. And then there's gonna be a cap, right? The second thing I would argue with here is makes more than the coach. Okay, that's how markets work. That's how just because I know people who do the job that we do, Diesel, that make more than their programming directors at their station. You think the programming directors are happy about that when they do all the grunt work while we sit up here in the ivory tower talking about football? No, but that's the market that we've all agreed to. So the reality to me is there is a market for this, just like there is in every other business, every other industry, and it's going to be up to them to figure out. And as far as the head coaches go, at some point, doesn't the coach have the authority to look that kid that goes, hey, coach, I make more than you get on the sideline, and go, yeah, no, you get your ass on the sideline?
No, he doesn't have the authority. That's the problem. He doesn't have the authority when you create the culture of the player having as much power as the coach. You're right. Deep down, Rob, yes, he should have the authority. However, the culture that we have now created is the players have as much power as the coaches. The bottom line is they're never going to get that power back.
The only thing that stops that from happening right now, Rob, is the fact that they can only play for one school per calendar year. Because any student athlete, if a coach said, screw you, I'm not doing what you tell me, after the player has just said, screw you, I'm not doing what you tell me, the only thing that's stopping a coach from doing anything is the fact that that player cannot leave and go somewhere else that school year. They have to stick around on that roster. I mean, a coach could choose to bench them. They could. But the only thing that they can do is say, well, you're trapped here at least till the end of the year. Then you can go.
Yeah. Real quick, a couple of texts I want to get to, guys, on the text line. 71307 419 says 4X Michigan players who will do about as much good
who's this?
as Ed Bannon did when he sued
Billy,
EA Sports. Lawyers get paid, fans suffer. Texter from the 809.
All right,
how do you sue for money based on the field moments, on the field moments, NIL money off the field marketing? 483, hearing Diesel, Cole, and Rob together is awesome, and it makes me appreciate not hearing the former host anymore. 764, Liber Rob loves spending other people's money. 230, if you think this is
the one giving to the collectives, boys. I ain't giving a red cent.
I have not paid a dime to a collective.
Yeah.
Hey, how about this?
Y'all are the one giving to the Garnet Trust, not me.
419, if it's a business, then fine. Then the players need to be employees, period. I can't push back to that.
You know, ready to the big step? And then I'll shut up. Diesel, the next step is unions. That's the next step, because the thing that you want, which is a cap, only happens with a collective bargaining agreement between the NCAA and the players.
Hey,
and in order for that to happen, there's a union coming. That will happen.
I have been a proponent of that since the moment this thing started to get out of control. Make them employees.
Yeah, I have to.
Set the salary.
Yeah.
Set the cap for the team. Whatever it is, however it is you choose to do this. I knew that that's where it was going.
But that'd be better than what we have, though.
It would be better than what we have, because now you know the maximum you're going to have to pay as an NIL collective, as a university, whatever it is. You know how much it's going to cost you to do business. And now your job is to go out there and find the employee, to find the player who's willing to do the job for the amount of money that you've got.
And
That's
also
a better system than what we have right now.
I agree with that, by the way. Rob, do we have a Tolo on hold? Let's go to the phones. Who do we have, Rob?
You got Billy in the Berg. Billy from Spartanburg.
Billy in the Berg. What's up, Billy?
This is Dewey.
Dewey.
My bad.
Get it right, Rob. Get it right.
I have to agree with Diesel.
Thank you, Dewey.
But these children should not be paid to play football in college.
Okay, why, Dewey? Why? Give us your reason.
Because they're children, first of all. They don't know what to do with millions of dollars.
Hell, I don't know what to do with millions of dollars, and I'm a grown-ass man.
And and they paying him millions of dollars to suck.
So your argument is I don't like it. Clear.
All right, that's good.
Thank you, Dewey.
That's good stuff. Thanks, Dewey. We've got to run. We'll get back to the conversation. A good conversation it is, but we have to evaluate where we are in the very next segment, Diesel and Rob. Through the first 2, 3, whatever it's been, 2 to 3 weeks of college football, have our thoughts on the core 4 conference winners changed, if at all? That and your thoughts. More. 71307 is the way you can text into the show. Start your text with the word fan. Again, 71307. Start your text with the word fan. That and more coming up next right here on the Fan Upstate.
Mike's hot.
Bryson on Wire to Wire. This is the Fan Upstate.
Before the season started, Diesel, we looked at the Core 4 conferences. We looked at the ACC, the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12. We gave our predictions on who we thought would be at the top of each conference. And, not a lot of football, not a big sample size thus far. However, we have seen 2-3 weeks of football, and we've seen enough now to knee-jerk a little bit, right? Hit you with that little red hammer on the knee, your funny bone, make you knee-jerk a little bit, and give your thoughts, if you have any, in terms of what's changed for you. And I want to hear from you, the Tolos, as well, 71307, in terms of the Core 4 conferences, who you thought would win it versus what you've seen in the first 2 weeks. And I don't think we can go anywhere. I don't think we can start anywhere other than the ACC. We have to start with the ACC because it's been, I would say, the conference that's had the most hiccups so far based on what you and I thought would happen. And I know you and I didn't pick Florida State to win it outright, but I don't know if we expected Florida State to have the 0-2 start that they've had, potentially 0-3 with Memphis looming this weekend. Diesel, ACC. Well, you and I both, I picked Clemson to win the conference. Did you pick Clemson or Miami?
I think I picked Miami to win the conference just by virtue of having a pretty weak schedule and not having to go through anybody until they get to the ACC title game.
Sure, and I think that's right. I do remember us both picking two different teams. I actually made a change that week you were on vacation. I had a gut feeling, went with Clemson over Florida State. Glad I did.
A homer pick.
It was a homer pick. Absolutely was. But out of the four conferences, Diesel, the Big 10, the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC, I would argue that there's not a conference other than the ACC that's in limbo as much as the ACC is in. Big 10, Big 12, SEC, we kind of still, the teams that are at the top, we still, Oregon didn't look the best in week one, but the teams week two, that's true. The teams that we thought would be at the top are still there. They still are in contention. The ACC is quite the opposite, where Florida State now obviously has no shot at winning the conference.
Well, it's the nature of a long horse race, right? This is a war of attrition. It's started obviously very, very early, but you can also look at some of these teams and how they're playing and sort of start making some educated guesses of what you think might happen to them over the course of the season. And yes, with the ACC, clearly Florida State has dropped out of the running. And to this point, I mean, yes, is it possible that they turn something around and they run the table and they're back in contention? Sure. But given what we've seen, obviously that feels less and less likely every single week. The ACC Miami plays nobody in their ACC schedule this year. And by nobody, yes, I know I'm including Florida State in that. Clemson has still shown that there's some question marks with them. Yes, they looked fantastic against App State. They looked terrible against Georgia. Who is this team going to be in the coming weeks? And obviously we need a little bit more time on Clemson to figure out who it is they're going to be. But Florida State, if I was going to put a medal stand on this thing to start the season, we were looking at Miami, Clemson, Florida State.
Sure.
And maybe Louisville as a dark horse contender, maybe SMU as a dark horse contender. SMU clearly falling by the wayside. Seems as if Florida State is falling by the wayside. So, everybody just sort of moves up a slot. You got Miami sitting there in the top spot for me, by virtue of having a weak conference schedule over the course of the season. Clemson number 2 because they've got to show me against ACC caliber opponents. And then maybe Louisville sliding into that third spot, sort of backdooring onto the medal stand.
And I want to bring Rob back in real quick. Rob, do you know, I'm going to put you on the spot. Just since we're talking about the Core 4 conferences, do you know the only team right now, and I can't believe we hadn't brought this up this week, the only team that's 1-0 and the best conference in all of America?
I believe that would be the Gamecocks of South Carolina.
The South Carolina Gamecocks. So the only ones. They're leading the conference. They are the best in the conference right now, right? Right? Everybody? Amen? Am I getting any push?
I'm sorry. It's game day. It's game day not in Columbia, South
Carolina. That's right.
This Saturday.
That's what I'm saying. They're 1-0. They're the only 1-0 team right now in the SEC. I don't think we've seen enough conference play. Obviously, there are teams that are good outside of conference, but when you talk about the Big 10, Big 12, and the SEC, if Diesel and Rob, if I had to pick, or if you had to pick a conference that's going to have just as much shakeup as the ACC has had out of the three, SEC, Big 10, Big 12, I don't know what you guys or where you guys stand on that. I don't think it's the SEC, but I want to hear from you, Diesel, as well as you, Rob, on which of the three, if I told you one of them will have as much shakeup in the next 2 to 3 weeks, who would you say?
Well, what I've seen as far as shakeup and what I think is going to happen, I'm seeing the most movement out of the Big 12 because I was really looking at Oklahoma State as a school that had a chance to step up, take that big step forward, and be a power in the Big 12 conference. Now, obviously, they look terrible against Arkansas. Yeah, they came back and got the win, but they looked terrible in that game. The question now, is it Utah? Is it UCF? Who's it going to be out of that conference? Rob?
I'm going to go Big 12 as well, but it really shouldn't be that shocking, at least in my opinion. The Big 12 is the most competitive conference, and I think we knew that coming into this year, right? Like we knew with the ACC, Miami, Clemson, Florida State. Turns out Florida State's not there, so there's really 2 teams in that conference, the Southeastern Conference. There's probably 6 teams in that conference. You add Ole Miss, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia into that mix, and there's a bunch of teams that could win it, but it's pretty much the top 4. The Big 12, I legitimately thought probably had 8, 9 teams that a couple of them have a good game here and there can win that conference. So I don't think Big 12 in week 6 is going to look anything like it looks in week 3.
The only thing that I would push back on is I hear you on the competitiveness in the Big 12. Other than the top 3, and I don't know who your top 3 in the Big 12 would be, but I'm struggling finding 5 or 6 that could actually compete for the conference, Rob.
So I would go with if we're looking at it. I think we can all take Colorado out of the equation.
That's correct. Yeah.
Iowa State. A lot of people laughed at me. They got Iowa this weekend. I really like Iowa. Oklahoma State, the Cowboys. Yeah, they got into a fist fight with Arkansas, but they won the football game. Kansas State's in that mix. Utah's in that mix. Obviously, the injury to Cam Rising again throws that into flux a little bit. We'll see what happens with that. And then there's probably 4 teams right below that I'm like, okay, they'll need a couple of good games, but I put Arizona, UCF, TCU, and Kansas all into that mix. And then there's BYU that's 2-0. There's Arizona State that's 2-0. I think any of those teams. Now, some will have to go above and beyond what their realistic expectations are. I think any one of those 10 teams could realistically win the conference. You're likely to have an Oklahoma State, an Iowa State, an Iowa, a Kansas State, Utah if Cam Rising comes back. But I think any of those 10 teams have a realistic possibility.
Well, one of the disappointments so far this season has got to be for a lot of people, Oregon.
Sure.
The fact that they looked awful in week number 1. Yeah, sure, a rusty performance. I get it. You sort of mess around with the FCS team. They're jacked up for the game. You're not really, you don't have your helmet quite buckled down all the way tight just yet. But then you come back and you sort of do it again in week number 2. You mess around with the Boise State, a roster that as talented as Boise State is this year, and as talented as they are just about every year, you in no way, shape, or form should be in a rock fight late in the 4th quarter with Boise State. If you're Oregon, you've got a gigantic payroll. We talked about NIL in the last segment. You got a massive payroll. You have all the talent you could possibly want. You should wipe the floor with a Boise State. So that's telling me that maybe there's some continuity issues in that program. Maybe there's some players who haven't quite gelled yet. And the question is, are they going to be able to right the ship? Yeah, they got a little more time before they get into Big Ten play, but they got the Buckeyes coming up very, very soon. And they could mess around and get absolutely stomped by Ohio State in their home stadium, which I know the pundits aren't supposed to focus in on one particular matchup, but if they get beat by 30 by Ohio State at home in Autzen Stadium, the committee's going to look at that and basically write them off before the season has really even got going.
Texter from the 419 ask, will Texas versus Georgia be the SEC championship, the national championship, or both? Because they both look dominant. And I think that's in the SEC, Diesel, I think that is the consensus, right? I mean, you'd have to be going out on a limb. And I mean, like one of those flimsy limbs that, kind of bend a good bit when you step on it. You'd have to be going out on a limb to find 2 teams in the SEC other than Texas, other than Georgia, that you think is going to be in the conference title game. And I know Bama's going to be good, but that is the general consensus. So to say that's out of the realm of possibility, I don't think it'll happen. SEC championship, repeat national championship, but you can't say it won't happen.
I think for the first time in a long time, the SEC is actually a compelling race. And I say that because, not to say that there aren't compelling teams in the SEC, and there haven't been for a while, Georgia being as excellent as they are, that's always interesting to watch. However, you now have a lot more programs in the SEC. You got Alabama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia. You got 5 teams at least right there.
It could win it, right?
It could win this thing, right? So this is going to be really fascinating. We know that Texas, Alabama, and Georgia play a round robin. They all play each other. So we're going to see that one play out over the course of the season. But now we actually have some parity in the SEC, not so much with the rest of college football, because Ole Miss is going to smoke just about everybody this year. Tennessee smoked NC State. But now you got some actual parity, a lot of really elite teams in that conference. That's what makes that one so dynamic.
Rob, any pushback on our SEC kind of, Diesel and I both talked about before the season started to be Georgia and Texas, in our opinions, fighting it out. Any pushback there?
Yeah, I'm going to give you 2 more. I'm going to start with Ole Miss. I was pushing back on Ole Miss preseason, but Jackson Dart has answered every question I had about that young man, and that to me it kind of felt like what Lane Kiffin's been missing the last couple of years. You add guys like Juice Wells, and now, they've been putting up 70s and 60s.
Yeah. Granted,
it's against nobodies, but if 70 and 60 against FCS teams translates to 35s and 45s against SEC teams, they got a chance. And I'm big on Alabama. In fact, I picked Alabama preseason as my SEC champion. Jalen Milroe, an absolute dog. Nick Saban didn't leave the cupboard bare. Kalen DeBoer's won everywhere he's been so far. I think a lot of people got tricked. Well, without Saban, they don't have a chance. Here's the thing. Kalen DeBoer was in a title game last year with a far less talented team than Alabama. They were always going to have growing pains, because just like when you get a new quarterback, you got to go through the growing pains. Same with the head coach. They're going to gel. They're going to figure it out. People were sleeping on USF. That's a game they've had circled in red for a long time. I'm keeping Alabama in my SEC championship bracket.
I don't have pushback there because I'm still high on Alabama. But like when you see Georgia, when you see Texas, it's hard to find a spot where they fit in, because there wasn't 2 teams, in my opinion, in the first 2 weeks of college football that looked more dominant than those 2, Texas and Georgia. So I'm as high on Alabama as you are. I like Kalen DeBoer. I think he's going to do a fantastic job. It's just hard to find where they fit.
Going to run off to this break a little bit early, as we have a special guest coming up in the next segment. We do want to give you our very first trivia question, your chance to win a $25 Ingles gift card. This is a product available inside of every Ingles market. If you think you know what it is, swing by our location here at Ingles Markets, and you could win a $25 gift card. Clue number 1, a Southern tradition that brings back memories of childhood. A Southern tradition that brings back memories of childhood. We are at 8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway in Spartanburg. If you think you know what product that is, come on by, drop your name in the hat. You could score a $25 Ingles gift card. Don't forget, coming up at 4 o'clock, the Upset Picks Challenge opens. You can start getting in your Upset Picks to us.
That's a
and
tough
on the
clue,
other
Diesel.
side of the break, we have Marty Richter, the brand new head coach of the USC Upstate Spartans. He'll be on with us next.
Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
Joined live now by a very special guest, the brand new head coach of the USC Upstate men's basketball team, Marty Richter, live here on location, 8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway in Spartanburg. You're going to have a chance to come out and meet Marty, come out and meet his team at Morgan Square Madness, October 3rd, Morgan Square, downtown Spartanburg. It's going to be an absolute ball. Come out and meet the team. Marty, first of all, welcome to the Upstate. You were saying earlier that you're originally from Waterloo, Iowa, by way of Drake University to come here to the Upstate. Can you talk about the culture that you want to build, that you're already instilling in the first couple of weeks and months that you've been on the job here, that you're bringing from Drake? Are you wanting to do a carbon copy of the culture that was built there at Drake? That's a very strong culture, or are you putting your own personal stamp on what you're building at USC Upstate?
I've had the luxury to work for a lot of different bosses in my career. I think I've had 9 different head coaches, and I'm doing a little bit of all of them, but I've had the luxury. I've been a head coach once already. I started a program from scratch at junior college, and my mainstay was just to play really hard and play together. Mm-hmm. And at Drake, we did the same thing. Coach DeVries believed in the same things that I believed in. That's why I went to work for him. And I worked for Coach Dooley, who's now an assistant at Kansas. He did the same thing when we were at Florida Gulf Coast. And the guy I worked for prior to that was Coach Enfield at SMU. And he was, hey, let's get up and down, play really fast. And I'm going to play really hard and share the ball, but I also want to play fast because that's how I like to play. And I think fans will like watching the game that way.
Coach Marty Richter joining us on Wire to Wire. Coach, what ultimately drew you to USC Upstate?
Well, I got the job.
Let's just be honest.
Let's just be honest. Like these jobs, they're more difficult to get than being an NBA player.
I love that.
Everybody's like, well, there's only 362 of them, I think, in college basketball at the Division I ranks. Well, you try to get them. I'm not getting to, let's be honest. I'm not getting Iowa. Like, you got to get a job before you get those jobs. So, like, I could get the job. And Dr. Harris gave me an opportunity, and Mr. Matt, or AD Matt gave me an opportunity also. And, hey, man, I ran with it. Like, a lot of people look at it and say, well, it's not a good job. It's just that. Well, shoot, Florida Gulf Coast was not a good job when Coach Enfield took it. I called my first recruit there. They thought I was at the junior college, Florida Gulf Coast Community College. So no job is a good job. Like, you make it a good job, and we're going to make this a really good job. Like Coach Dickerson did a good job, but the guy before him, Coach Payne, he was tremendous here. I mean, he won 24 games. Well, my teams I wasn't the head coach. My teams at FGCU that I was a part of played against his teams. He had really good teams. He won 20 games, played in the CIT, I think, a couple times. And that's what you do. Like, hey, I'm coming here. If it was a great job, you know who would not have gotten the job, guys? The guy sitting right here. Let's just be honest. Like, I'm no fool on that. But, like, I think I'll make it a really good job, and my energy and my passion for it will make it a really good job. And, the upstate area, people are supportive. You guys, I can't thank you guys enough for letting me come on the air, because most people look at it and say, where's Upstate at again? You know what I mean? I always think it's New York when you tell people, and I'm glad you guys know where it's at.
Well, Coach, one of the great things about sports and college basketball in particular, probably more than any other sport, is that you can build a winner out of a mid-major program. You can really build something special at a small school. You don't necessarily have to have the biggest budgets of all. It certainly helps. It's great to have the extra money. But, Coach, you're starting your very first year with a lot of big-time opportunities to put your name, to put USC Upstate's name on the map on a national scale. You got 5 games against major conference opponents, NC State, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, Iowa, South Carolina, all on the schedule. What's it going to take? All these games are on the road. What's it going to take to get one of those games played here at your house, here in the Upstate, right? Maybe play a game at Bon Secours, Spartanburg Memorial Auditorium to get a little more fans in there.
That would be awesome. The toughest thing in scheduling is this. High majors, they play a 20-game conference season. They've got 11 non-conference games. Out of those 11 non-conference games, they're going to get 3 in an MTE most likely. So now they're down to 8. Let's say they only play 2 in an MTE. They're down to 9. They're going to play a challenge, which gets them down to 8 or 7. 2 challenges. Then they're going to buy 6 opponents.
Yeah.
And then they're going to have one more game to go on the road somewhere, play a neutral site. And that's the tough thing for people coming to play at USC Upstate, or if they want to go play at Wofford in town here, if they want to go play at Furman. That's what makes it tough for us to get those type of opponents.
Sure.
Our opponents that we could get are UNC Wilmington. Like opponent, Coastal Carolina, we're going there this year. They'll come back next year. We've got to get those really good opponents in that aspect. It's tough to get the high. I would love to. Hey, man, I would love my Hawkeyes. I grew up, born, raised, Iowan. You know what I mean? Come play us here. You know what I mean? And you got to figure out, maybe you could figure out a 2-for-1 deal and get teams out here and do that. But it's tough. I would love to. It's going to take a lot to win those games. I mean, I need you guys sitting on the bench with me. You know what I mean? Maybe you guys could officiate those games.
Right.
That would help a lot. But there'll be fun games, and there'll be a great test for our guys because every game is a little bit different. Playing Virginia Tech is different than playing Wake Forest. Wake Forest is going to try to defensive mind you out, rebound you out, tough you on the glass, while Virginia Tech is they're going to outsmart you. That's what they're going to try to do. And Coach Young is a terrific coach. People in this area know him really well, but like his system is really good. Those games are different, and they prepare me for different games when I play like opponents, when I play ETSU or when I play Longwood or when I play Winthrop. You know, those games are very similar, and that's what I try to do with my schedule this year.
Coach Marty Richter, the new Upstate basketball coach, joining us. And Coach, one of the main reasons you're with us is to talk about the event coming up in October, which is going to be in downtown Spartanburg, Morgan Square Madness. And you know what? I think that's a tremendous event that you guys and the city of Spartanburg put on that promotes USC Upstate basketball, men's and women's. Talk about that event a little bit for our audience that don't know much about it.
You know what? If you've never been there, you need to come. This is going to be my first time, too. I watched videos last year of it. It's an unbelievable event for an institution like ours to have that much support from the community to come out. It's unreal. What I've seen in videos and stuff like that, they got more support than we did at Drake. We do the same event downtown Des Moines. We shut off a street. We did the same thing. We wouldn't get 3,000 people like we're going to get 3,000 people. We wouldn't get that at Drake. And at Drake, we went to three out of the last 4 years NCAA tournament. Like it's really good. Like and I tell fans this, come, because it's the first time you're going to get to meet me. It's the first time you're going to get to meet my players, and then you could come out to a game. And all I ask all fans to do, come to one game. If you don't like it, don't come back. But I guarantee you're going to like it. You're going to enjoy it because it's going to be the way I coach and the way I do business on the court and the way my players do business, you're going to enjoy it. And then you could bring 2 people back the next time you come. That's all I ask. Fill up our little arena. Make it loud because it's fun when you play it loud in gyms.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Head coach of the USC Upstate Spartans, Marty Richter. So you're an Iowa guy. You spent a lot of time in Iowa. You're playing Iowa this year. That's got to be a little bit bittersweet, right? A little bit of a weird feeling going up against your hometown, your childhood favorite.
You know what? Like, hey, I grew up Tom Davis all day long, and fans that listen to this, they probably don't even know who Tom Davis. Dr. Tom Davis was unbelievable coach back with the Hawks for, I think, 13 years. All the years I was 8, 9, 10, all the way up through. So I just remember the Hawkeyes being really good. When I took the job, they told me, yeah, you're playing Iowa. I'm like, oh, great. My family gets to come watch. Now, I don't know if I like that because I don't want my family seeing me. You know what I mean? But it'll be good because one of the guys I worked with at Drake is an assistant at Iowa, really good friend of mine. I get to see him. We get to coach against each other, which I haven't done yet. And it'll be fun. It'll be a fun environment, great place to play college basketball.
Well, Coach, we appreciate your time. We look forward to the event. We'll be there and can't wait to have you back on throughout the season and build a relationship with you and follow and keep up with Upstate basketball.
Guys, thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's Coach Marty Richter. Upset Picks Challenge. Well, it begins. Window open 6 minutes from now. We'll kick it off. On the other side, he's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson, and this is The Fan, Upstate.
The Fan, Upstate.
The Upset Picks Challenge is live. It is 4 p.m. on Wednesday. That means you can begin to enter the challenge that's brought to you by Ingles Markets. We so much appreciate our friends, your friends at Ingles, for sponsoring the Upset Picks Challenge. And so it begins. As you know, if you've if you've entered the challenge before in the previous 2 weeks, you know you've got to submit your name, the game you want, and the amount of points. Those are the 3 things that we need from you. The way it works is if you pick an underdog that's a 10-point dog, if you pick them, they win the game. Guess what? You get 10 points for the week. That is how it works. You can text the show 71307. Start your text with the word fan, and we'll get to Delvin in just a few minutes. But I did also want to do a kind of a dual segment here. I want to hear from the Tolos. I want to hear from you, Diesel, as well as you, Rob. One thing, putting politics aside, one thing that I hope never happens in the United States of America, and I'm afraid that it will, but one thing that I hope, Diesel, never happens is we get older, we die, and the people who are younger than us forget what happened on this day 23 years ago. I know where I was. I remember it. I was young, but I still remember it. You know where you were. It's one of those moments in your life where you can't forget where you were when it happened. And I just wanted to open up to the text line as well. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Again, that's 71307, keyword fan. Where were you on this day 23 years ago when such a horrible incident happened to this country? It's a reminder that after a night last night where we had to watch a debate between 2 presidential candidates, it's a reminder that that's what this country is supposed to be. It's supposed to be unified. However, one thing that we fail to forget a lot of times is that politics do the opposite of that. Politics divide. That's what they're made to do. And, I think today's a good reminder after last night that we as a country, we, Diesel, as the United States of America, we're supposed to be unified. And I very well remember when I was still young, very young, 23 years ago today.
Yeah, Cole, I was a senior in high school. So I would have been, 16, 17 years old. I remember sitting in our school library. I think I was in there at the time in like a German class, and we were working on a project, a report, or something, whatever it was. And I just remember seeing our teacher walk in with this just petrified, mortified look on her face, trying to figure out how she's going to explain to a bunch of 17-year-olds what's going on, what's happening in our country. And I think at the time, I don't recall if both planes had already hit the buildings in New York City or if it was just one of them at the time. But I can imagine what that's like to have to try to explain, because nobody knew what was going on. It was complete and utter chaos. And obviously, everybody remembers and they instantly think of the events that happened in New York City with the Twin Towers. But you also have to think about the plane that hit the Pentagon and the other plane that, if I remember correctly, was bound for the White House. But it was taken down in a field in Pennsylvania. You think about the thousands of Americans who lost their lives, and you got to think about the utter bravery of the people who were on that flight, the passengers who were on that flight, who acted, and a struggle ensued, and they were able to bring that plane down. So this thing could have been way worse. I mean, you got to think, if you're on a plane and you're intentionally struggling with somebody bad who means to do well, you're probably not going to walk away from this thing, but you have the opportunity to potentially save thousands of more lives by doing this really, really brave and heroic thing. And, I think those people get forgotten just a little bit sometimes in conversations about 9/11. But, yeah, I mean, to try to wrap our minds around it, it was mass chaos all across the country. People trying to figure out what was going on, who was responsible, how this could happen, and just information flooding in on a daily basis, and trying to piece this thing together was just completely insane.
And I want to hear from Rob as well, but when we talk about it, I still get goosebumps on my arm just talking about it. And that's one of the things that I hope we don't do. I hope we never forget. I hope the next generation never forgets, because regardless of who you vote for in November, regardless of what side of political party you're on, we need to remember this day as a reminder that we're one nation, right? That we're one nation. We're not supposed to be divided. However, that's where we are today. If you watched the debate last night, there's nothing there but division. You can't call it any other word. And we're supposed to be unified. We're supposed to be together. We all live in the same country. We all love each other. We all love our neighbors. We all love our coworkers. And we've gotten to a point, for whatever reason, that we treat people differently because of who they vote for. And I think that's a terrible place to be. I think it's a terrible place to be that we treat our neighbors differently because who they vote for at the poll, when it's somebody they've never met, they've never spoken to, they've never gotten a dime from, right? But we're going to be mad and we're going to allow ourselves to be divided. I think we need to use this day as a reminder that that's not how we're supposed to be. I was homesick, actually, on 9/11 23 years ago, and I actually went to work with my mom because I was sick that day. I don't know if I was really sick or had a test. It was one of the two, you know how that is. But I was not in school, let's put it that way. And I remember being at my mom's workplace and, watching it on old school TV happen, just sitting there on the floor. And it was something as a young kid that you really couldn't fathom. You really couldn't wrap your mind around what was going on. And I'm sure even for a high schooler like you were, Diesel, you still couldn't comprehend what was happening and why it was happening. But Rob, I know that that day 23 years ago, I'm sure you remember where you were as well.
Sophomore in high school, Miss Grady's algebra class at a table with Matt Tenor and Jake Zebdanewski watching it. She got up and turned it on after the first plane. And, I've said for many years, when the second plane hit, I think there was an immediate, even amongst a bunch of dumb high school sophomores, I think we all kind of in that moment realized this is on purpose. This is not an accident. This is an attack. And, the country changed that day. But I think that moment, the lives of people, and I can only speak for me and my generation, but the people that were around my age all came to the realization that we don't live in this isolated world anymore, right? Terrorism was always something that happened in the Middle East and it happened in Europe. But America, we didn't have to deal with that. Now we do. Now it's a thing we have to deal with. So, what I chose to focus on the show this morning and to kind of keep it pigeonholed into the sports world is, I think, loving sports is a global phenomenon. There is sports on every continent and every country. They love sports. But the way that we love sports is uniquely American. It is something very special. You look at college football game day on Saturday when they're in Columbia, and you'll see that. It is something special. It is something unique. And those are the things that people who commit heinous acts like that try to take away from us. So for me, the fact that we get to sit here and blabber on like idiots about football, something that in the grand scheme of things means nothing to us when the ride is up, but it means something to us individually day by day.
Yeah.
There is something unique about that. And to me, the best way to keep that memory alive, the best way to commemorate the sacrifices that were made by the people who had their lives taken that day is to just do what the hell we do, boys. It's to talk football. It's to go home, eat some hot dogs, drink some whiskey, have some apple pie, spend some time with our loved ones, and just enjoy what it means to be an American. And I think we are. I think we have the opportunity to do that right now.
Yeah, Rob, you're 2 years younger than me. You were you were a sophomore in high school. I don't know if you had this similar feeling, but me being a senior in high school, I just thought immediately this thing is going to become a global conflict, and there's a very good chance that I get swept up in this. And so much respect and appreciation and admiration for sons and daughters of America who choose to sign up for our military. But I thought this thing is going to get so big that I'm going to get drafted into the military. I'm going to have to go serve. I'm going to be overseas, and I'm going to be in some place whose name I can't even pronounce, shooting at somebody whose name I can't pronounce, and they're going to be shooting right back. I was absolutely terrified. I was absolutely terrified of where this thing was eventually going to go. And, I recall so many students just like me all kind of seeking out the one high school teacher that we knew was a military veteran who had served in Vietnam, served in the special forces in Vietnam. And we all sought him out. Like, what do you think's going to happen? Yeah. Like, this was He was a social studies teacher. He was a history teacher. And we all thought, like, hey, this is going to be the guy who has the answers. So that's the first person we all ran to. And I mean, it was a scary time.
It was. The last thing I'll say before we get to the upset picks, it was. And the younger that you were, obviously it's more difficult to remember. And as we get older, as the years go on, there will be less and less people who actually remember where they were. A lot of people weren't even alive. So that's the hard part. And, when you look at it, when you hear the stories from you, Diesel and Rob, and the texts that are coming in from where we all were on 9/11, the last thing I'll say is I think it's one of the days that we should remember every day and not just on 9/11, because, if we were able to do so and remember that day every day and remember that this country is a lot better of a place when we're unified rather than when we're split and divided. If we could take 9/11 and apply those same thoughts and principles to every single day of our lives instead of it just being one day a year, I think the world would be a lot better of a place.
Rob, Cole, my very visceral memory of that day, and not to go down a rabbit hole because this will always divide people, this conversation. That memory is the very real reason why I have such a huge problem with Live Golf and the American golfers who have chosen to take money from the Saudi regime that we know was responsible for funding 9/11. I think there's a lot of people who have either let that memory fade or they don't take it seriously or they were too young to remember it when it actually happened. That visceral memory is the reason why I have such a big response anytime we talk about Live Golf and we talk about who funds it, and people say it's no big deal. It's just golf. If you like golf, watch it. If you don't like it, don't watch it. No, I will always fight back against it because that is a very real part of my childhood.
I will say this because I agree with you. I've been anti-Live Tour since the inception of Live Tour. I think it might be the only thing in the entire 4.5 years I have been here, Diesel, that every single person on the air has been on the same opinion about. None of us are fans, and it's the only thing. But here's where I approach it. I remember shortly after that, I wrote an editorial. I was the sports editor at our high school because obviously, look at me, I'm a gigantic dork. What do you want? And I wrote an editorial in the paper that said, we need to play high school football on Friday. My high school, Choctaw High School, had a rivalry game against Niceville. I said, we need to play because at the end of the day, the people who did it trying to disrupt our lives, trying to take things away from us, our safety, our security, our happiness. And the way you win is by playing football. And both my principal and the principal from the other school called me and said, hey, look, we read your editorial and we agree. We're going to play this football game. So on that Friday night, 2 football teams stood on the field together, alternating players linked arm in arm. Both bands alternated playing next to each other. And they told us when we got to the stadium, we're not doing home and away. We want everybody to sit everywhere. We want green and red and white so we had half the home team fans on the away side and half the away team fans on the home side. And we played football. And I remember it. The field was ringed with American flags. It was one of the most beautiful nights I have ever experienced in my life because it was a night that we didn't give a damn about your politics or your religion or your money or your financial. We didn't care about any of that. We were all here to do something that we as Americans love to do and to make sure the world knew, or at least our little pocket of it, we're not going to be scared and have things that we love taken away for us because of a bunch of jackwagons from the other side of the globe that don't like that we do these things. I will never forget that day. I heard somebody say earlier today, fellas, live every day like you did on September 12th, 2001. And I think that's very important.
And that's the problem. It's our fault, though, Rob. It's our fault that tomorrow, guess what? We'll go back to our normal lives of criticizing you and you and you for what politics or what religion you have. It's our fault. We're at fault because we allow ourselves to be drugged by the mainstream narrative of the media, and we are the ones that don't allow ourselves to live every day, as you said, like it's September the 12th. And I think it starts with us, right? We can't expect the media to do it for us or somebody else to do it for us. We've got to do it, and that's my point. So, I know that was a long rabbit trail, but I think it needed to be said.
Sure. I mean, there are people out there who treat politics like it's sports, who hate the person on the other side of the aisle, who think you're a terrible person, that you're a scumbag, that you're evil, that you're capable of evil things. No, they just think a little bit differently than you.
That's right.
So we have to remember that. We have to remember that just because you support one candidate, not the other candidate, doesn't make you a terrible person who needs to be wiped off the face of this earth the way the people who committed these attacks on 9/11 thought about us.
All right, guys, ladies, gents, we have to get to the Upset Picks Challenge that just opened 15 minutes ago. Upset Picks Challenge brought to you by Ingles Markets. Get your picks in 71307. You know what? The only bad thing, Diesel, I have no clue who I'm taking. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you?
I do. I think I do. But the good news is we're going to have a little time to be thinking about it. We normally get our picks out here in the very first segment of this hour.
Yeah.
But I know that we've got Delvin on hold right now. Delvin, we're kind of up against the break. Who do you have? Who's your upset pick? Who do you like?
I got Arizona plus 7.5 over Kansas State. I think Fujita and McMillan gonna go off Friday night.
Ooh. You mentioned that one yesterday.
Fajitas for everyone if they win the football game, Delvin. I like your pick. I am very heavily leaning towards that one. I haven't found anything else out there that really, really spikes my interest and makes me want to take that game over this one. So you may have just convinced me to take this game because you're a smart man, Delvin, and you've always done really, really well in this contest, in this challenge. So I may have to ride with you.
I know we have to run, but the last thing I'll say, Rob Diesel, tell me why I shouldn't ride 2 weeks in a row with the Gamecocks. Tell me why.
Because they're hosting LSU and they're very, very good. And we haven't seen South Carolina put together consistent.
Come on.
Now, I can't give you a better reason than that.
I do want to point out that's the same LSU that took 3.5 quarters to get past Nichols State University. Quick, what's the nickname of the Nichols State University, Diesel? You should know this. Who is Nichols State?
Well, I heard it in your promo. They're the Colonels.
Okay, fine. I gave it
God,
away.
he literally knows.
You didn't know that if it wasn't for my promo when it took LSU 2.5. I'm not taking it, Cole, but you ain't wrong for going with it.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll try. We'll try.
You go.
I know we got to get to Kelley forward, so we'll run.
We will. So you Tolos, keep sending in your picks. We're copying and pasting them feverishly. Make sure we don't miss them. We'll also invite you to keep making your picks throughout the show. But let's get out to break here. We'll bring on Kelley Ford of K Ford Ratings next. He's going to make you smarter right here on the Fan Upstate.
Cole, Bryson, and Diesel on the
Upstate.
It's time for you, Tolos, to get a little bit smarter, and maybe, just maybe, Kelley Ford can change your mind on your upset pick and help convince you either way. If you're looking at one of these teams, we are joined now by Kelley Ford of K Ford Ratings. Look him up on Twitter at K Ford Ratings. Absolutely fantastic analytical mind joining us here on the Fan Upstate. Kelley, I want to launch right away with our local team, the Clemson Tigers. How did Clemson's offensive rankings change? And how does your model account for Clemson blowing out a team like App State, who last year had the 70th ranked defense in the country, only had one data point going into this game against ETSU? What happened to Clemson's offensive rankings, and how does your model sort of justify playing a team with a potentially very weak suspect defense?
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. As always, it was a great weekend of college football for fans of big programs in the state of South Carolina. Clemson certainly had a good weekend. You asked about the offense in particular, up to number 16 in my unit rankings this week with a power rating of 86 on a 0 to 100 scale. So Clemson certainly impressed. And you talk about the opponent being App State. App State, I mean, maybe this is not as good of an App State team as we've seen, dominate the Sun Belt over the course of the last 10 years or so. But this is still not a terrible App State team. I have them power rated number 87 right now. So the model was very impressed. Clemson has improved 4.3 points in the power rating from a week ago. That's in the top 10 in terms of biggest improvement from last week to this week. Because of that, Clemson is now projecting to get back to Charlotte in the ACC championship game. I've got the Tigers projecting to face off against Miami now in that game. So that is exactly the kind of bounce-back performance that the Clemson Tigers needed. I now have both units in the top 20, and this team is now power rated number 10, which is the highest power rating for any team in FBS that already has a loss this season.
Kelley, it's Cole. Appreciate you hopping on with us. One of the more fascinating parts of your website, it's all fascinating at kfordratings.com, but the most deserving, I like looking at that. But I had a question. When it comes to most deserving compared to the actual power rankings themselves, do you, in past seasons, do you ever see direct correlation with most deserving teams that climb the ladder in the most deserving category, but also climb the ladder in the power rankings?
Yeah, and so there's not a super strong correlation between these two things. I'm really glad you asked about it because I use Ohio State as an example here. The Buckeyes are my number 3 power-rated team in the country. Right now, my model would only favor Georgia and Texas against Ohio State if they played on a neutral field. However, my most deserving rankings, which is looking at, what has a team accomplished this year relative to expected, it ranks the Buckeyes number 42 in the country. So the Buckeyes are not even a top 25 or a top 40 team in most deserving, even though they're number 3 in the power ratings. Now, Ohio State's going to get a lot of opportunities later this year as they play Big Ten opponents to improve that deserving ranking, right? But the most deserving rankings is my absolute favorite piece of content I put out. It uses the power ratings as an engine to assign credit for the opponents you beat using their power rating. So Northern Illinois right now is my number 1 most deserving team of 2024 because they went into South Bend and beat the Fighting Irish, who I have still as the number 11 power rated team in the country. So that's a really, really impressive win. Texas is number 2 on that list. Georgia's number 3. Cal, who beat Auburn this weekend, is number 4. But if you're looking at, how do we assign credit for this? Just because Northern Illinois is ranked number 1, it would be silly to suggest that, okay, if a team beats Northern Illinois this weekend, they should get more credit than beating, let's say, Ohio State, who's number 42. No, that's really silly because we should assign credit to the deserving rankings based on your opponent's power rating, not their resume ranking. This is the crux of my kind of soapbox of ratings versus rankings. Both of these things are really informative. They tell a really good story, but they're two totally separate things. Power ratings look forward. Deserving rankings look backward and judge how much you accomplished this year. And right now, got to give it to them. Northern Illinois, the Huskies, are my number 1 most deserving team after week 2.
Hard to argue that, Kelley. Does your model retroactively go back and adjust ratings on an individual game performance if, after the fact, for example, Kentucky's offense and Brock Vandagriff goes on to have an impressive season? Does your model go back and reweight the performance that South Carolina had against them as more impressive because they proved that South Carolina shutting down that Kentucky offense was really a big achievement?
Man, we're getting in the nitty-gritty. I absolutely love this. So I made a change this year with how I assign the credit in the most deserving. That's how we'll talk about the change in power ratings here. It used to be for me that you would get credit for your opponent's power rating at the time of the game, so when you played them. So what was Kentucky's power rating in week 2, or Kentucky's current power rating? Let's flash forward, it's week 8, and Kentucky now has a better power rating than they had in week 2. You're going to get credit for that week 8 game. Now, if a team nosedive, like a Florida State, let's say Florida State, after, the first week they're nosediving the power rating, Georgia Tech, who played them in week 0, they were going to get credit for their week 0 power rating of Florida State or their current. They would get the week 0 because the current's lower. I've made a change this year to go back to what I used to do a few years ago and only use current power rating. So the power rating at the time of the game doesn't matter anymore in my most deserving. The reality is it doesn't change too much, but I do think this is a more fair reflection. So Georgia Tech, they're getting credit for beating number 28 power rated Florida State, not the number 12 power rated Florida State, for example. So to your question, if Kentucky ends up going on a run here and proves to be a lot better than the model currently thinks, which right now, give me 1 second, and I can pull up Kentucky. At the exact moment in time that we're talking, Kentucky for me is power rated number 50. If they end up being better than that, and let's say they're number 30 at the end of the year, South Carolina will get credit. Yes, retroactively, they will be assigned credit for beating the number 30 power rated team by 31-6, which is going to really help South Carolina.
Kelley Ford of K Ford Ratings joining us on the program. Kelley, when you look at schedule difficulty on your website, kfordratings.com, you've got South Carolina at 11. This is number of expected wins plus or against, rather, a team's regular season schedule, and you have them at 8.1. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so with the schedule difficulty, and that was that on the website there, that's frozen the preseason numbers. I don't update that during the year. I leave that there for reference so we can see how it goes throughout the year. I will be updating the CFP content on Thursday, tomorrow, as I always do during the season. And that's really where the schedule difficulty comes in, where how many wins, regular season wins, would be required for your team to be in that at-large conversation? Because, 8 wins against Florida's schedule or Georgia's schedule is pretty comparable to, let's say, 11 wins against a Miami or a UCF or a Notre Dame schedule, because that's the difference in schedule difficulty there. For South Carolina, they are among, the top 10 most difficult schedules in the country. For me, if South Carolina gets to 9 wins in the regular season, and right now, give me 1 second. Let me pull that back up because now I'm on Kentucky on my site. If I go back to South Carolina, at this moment in time, we've got a 10% chance that South Carolina gets to at least 9 wins. If South Carolina gets to 9 wins, I believe they should be in the conversation at a minimum for an at-large spot in the CFP, because that's how difficult this schedule is. So South Carolina is off to a great start. If we look at Clemson, it's a little bit easier of a schedule. My number suggests that Clemson needs to get to 10 regular season wins to be in that at-large conversation. So that's how I determine those thresholds for at-large conversation. It's all based on how difficult is your schedule. South Carolina among the top 10 most difficult in the country.
Make sure you visit his website, kfordratings.com. Find him on Twitter at kfordratings. Kelley Ford joining us here on the Fan Upstate. Kelley, what is the single statistical factor that is the quickest way to recover from a terrible loss in your rating system? Does one particular measurable seem to kind of reign supreme?
It's really not one measurable, I wouldn't say. The quickest way to bounce back is to dominate and execute with flawless efficiency. At its crux, if in 15 seconds I had to describe how the power rating model works, it is be efficient and successful, and we define those in different ways based on game state, but be efficient and successful every single play, on offense, on defense, and on special teams. If you are efficient and successful, down in and down out, drive in and drive out, you are going to skyrocket up the power rating. It is teams that fail to be efficient or don't have success on offense, on defense, on special teams. Those are the teams whose power ratings will suffer. So it's really not one, pass for 300 yards, score 28 points. It doesn't really work that way. It's on a down in, down out basis, which translates to drive by drive. Be efficient and be successful.
Kelley Ford, listen, this is the first year, Kelley, of the 12-team playoff. Your power ratings, which I love, Georgia 1, Texas 2, Ohio State, Bama, and Ole Miss rounding out the top 5. How do you project the power ratings to come to a conclusion when the season ends and we're projecting who's going to be in the final 12, how do you think these power rankings, based on what you've done in years past, will stack up to the actual 12?
So the power ratings themselves are there will be correlation between the power ratings and the 12 teams that make the playoffs, but it's not going to be nearly as strong as the correlation, hopefully, between the 12 that make the playoffs and my most deserving rankings, because that's what the most deserving rankings are doing. They're judging everybody's resume and trying to pick the 12 teams that deserve to be in there. I know the committee for years and years, a decade now, it says we want the 4 best teams. That's really not what they were doing when you look at it. Now, last year with leaving Florida State out and putting in, an Alabama team, maybe they were going best, but in years past before that, Michigan State in 2015, TCU in 2022, there's certainly more that come out. Washington in 2016, I think it was. You're not really picking the best 4 teams. You were picking the 4 teams that were deserving to be there. So there's going to be correlation. But, for example, Texas is a team, and I know we've talked about it on this radio show in years past. Let's go back 2 years ago. I think Texas went like 8-5, maybe something like that. They were a top 10 power-rated team for me at the end of the year. Certainly, they were not anywhere near sniffing the 4-team playoff. Wouldn't have been in the 12-team playoff at that time either. So from a power rating standpoint, that was still a really good team. So, of my top 12 power-rated teams at the end of the year, I would expect somewhere around, 6 to 8 of those teams to make, maybe 7 to 8 of those teams to be in the playoff. But if you look at my top 12 most deserving, I would certainly hope that 9 or more of those teams are in, because that would mean the committee, in my opinion, would have done their job and truly evaluated resumes, not just counted losses.
Kelley, how do you think analytics should be applied to the CFP process that it's not currently being applied? I mean, I don't think any of us want it to be all analytics. Maybe you do because you're an analytics guy. But if we go all analytics, then all of a sudden we're back to the BCS, right? We love the element of people making these decisions, using the eye test. In what ways do you think analytics should be applied that it currently isn't?
I believe analytics, and I'm probably, if you're telling me, like, Kelley, you could either have a fully analytical approach or no analytics and you have the committee, I would go the full analytical approach. I do believe that there is room for both of these to coexist. However, I think the committee's reluctance to embrace analytics from a resume standpoint, at least, has certainly left something to be desired from the selection process. So for me, ideally, what we would do is provide the committee with, whether you provide the committee with, 5 or 6 different resume metrics as standalones, or you take 5 or 6 resume metrics. I mean, I'm going to put my own most deserving in there, of course. I'll put Bill Connolly's resume SP+. You can put Brian Promo's wins above elite. You can do ESPN strength of record. There are many out there. If you aggregated those, and there's ways to do that without losing the integrity of the math behind it. If you aggregated the power, or the most deserving resume metrics, that would provide the committee with almost a true seed list, if you will. Now, if they want to deviate from that seed list and say the number 8 team's actually number 6 and the number 7 team's actually number 10, then I think we can have that nuanced conversation. What that would help us avoid, though, is the committee having a team that's like number 15 in the true seed list sneak up to number 10 and make it in the playoff. When you're looking at like, wow, that team really wasn't that close to this bubble. They should not have really even been under consideration. So I think using analytics, resume analytics and metrics to try to create what I would call a true seed list by combining a couple that are out there, that would give the committee kind of a true north, if you will, and then they could make their own adjustments from there, but certainly try not to waver too far from it, because the purpose of the metrics and of the numbers is to remove the biases that we all hate when it comes time for selection.
Kelley, when you look at the matchup Saturday, LSU and South Carolina, when you plug both of those in, we have a lot of Gamecock fans listening. How much hope do you have for the Gamecock fans on Saturday?
Guys, this game, I think it's going to be awesome. I have not updated my watchability scores for the entire country, like my list of 1 to 10. However, it is possible this game is going to be my number 1 game. I update that on Friday. This game right now has a watchability score of 9.1, and there's not currently from last week, there's nothing above a 9.0. So I think this is going to be one of, if not the most exciting games to watch this weekend. I have actually got South Carolina with a 51% win expectancy in this game. So it's a pick'em for me. I don't even know what the biggest line is off the top of my head. It's a pick'em for me, and I would lean South Carolina to actually get the win. If you look at the unit breakdown here, they're actually pretty darn similar. South Carolina on the defensive side is certainly stronger, according to my model, coming in at number 17. I've got the LSU offense at number 5. So potentially a little bit of a disadvantage there for the South Carolina defense. But you flip it around on the other side, and I think maybe South Carolina might have the advantage. They've got a number 71 offense, which certainly is not good enough to reach the heights that I think South Carolina fans want. So we need to get better still, but they're going up against an LSU defense that I have number 76. So I think it's going to be a very close game. I do have LSU power rated better than South Carolina, but because this game is in South Carolina, you got to apply the home field advantage, and that essentially wipes away the gap. So 51% win expectancy for South Carolina, and I am very much looking forward to this game, potentially the number one highest watchability score game of the week.
Well, Kelley, to answer your question, LSU is favored by 7 in that game, sitting right now on ESPN.com. I think
there's value there for South Carolina.
Really? Okay. I mean, I could ask you for some upset picks, but you're not a part of the challenge this year because, well, you just got too much inside knowledge, right? You got too much info, and it wouldn't be fair. Kelley Ford would wipe the floor with all of us. Kelley, what can you tell us about Oregon this year and why Oregon now twice in 2 very different ways have struggled with opponents that should be inferior to them? Are people just selling Idaho short? Are people just selling Boise State short? Or is there something really wrong in Eugene, especially on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, so Oregon's a really interesting team, one that came into the year power rated number 3 for me. They are now number 12, but what's more concerning for Oregon than just the fall from 3 to 12, how many points did they fall in the model? And right now they have fallen 9.1 points from preseason to current. That is second worst in the entire FBS. Only one team has fallen more than Oregon over the course of the season so far. So it is very concerning. I don't want to defend Oregon, but to defend Oregon, Idaho is not a bad FCS team. Don't get it wrong. The 10-point win at home is inexcusable. Oregon should be beating Idaho by much more than 10 at home. Idaho is not a poor FCS team, though, for what that is worth. For Boise State, they're number 31 in the power ratings. This is many people's, including mine, picked to be the G5 representative in the 12-team CFP. So certainly Boise State is not a bad team, but again, you would have expected Oregon with this team at home to win that game much more comfortably than they did. So I do have Oregon still number 12. The offense has fallen significantly. It started the year, in the top 1 or 2 projected offenses in the country. It's now number 11. And you said the defense is concerning. I absolutely agree with you. They're down to number 30 right now. This is going to be a tricky test. It's the Civil War. They're going on the road to Corvallis to play Oregon State. Oregon State's going to be ticked off, right? Like, they're left behind. They're just in the remnants of what is the Pac-12. They're getting Oregon to come to their place. This, to me, is going to be an interesting one. I've got a 74% win expectancy for Oregon, but that does not account for some of the factors such as this rivalry game, the conference realignment, all of that. So Oregon should absolutely be on upset alert this week. And if they continue to struggle, they've already fallen out of my top 2 projected teams in the Big Ten standings. They're down to number 3 now behind Ohio State and Penn State. If they continue to struggle, they will fall behind USC, who is surging in the power ratings as well.
Kelley, fantastic stuff as always. We appreciate your time and your insight. We'll do it again next week.
Hey, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.
Absolutely. That's Kelley Ford of K Ford Ratings. That's where you can find his site. It's incredible. We encourage you to go check it out, kfordratings.com. Daily Wires coming up in the very next segment. We'll get you caught up on all the things happening in the sports world next.
844 fan phone. This is Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
We're going to get you a few headlines. We call them daily wires. But before we do that, I want to let you know we're at 8004 Warren Abernathy Highway in Spartanburg. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. We'll have the one, the only Melissa Level joining us in 12 minutes from now for a segment that she loves, you love, and we love, that we're going to do on Wednesdays. That way we can continue that very segment. We're going to get the clue for the hour number 2 in, but let's first go to Bill, who wants to give his upset pick for the week. He is on the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. What's up, Bill?
How y'all doing? First-time caller, long-time listener. I want to take Boston College plus 16.5 over Missouri.
Ooh.
I think the two corners will be able to keep the wide receivers in check. And I think if they can keep Cook in the pocket, the defensive line will take care of him as well.
That's bold, Bill.
Bill, I love it.
Very, very good, very experienced offense at Missouri. That's the only thing that I think you might be discounting a little bit there, Bill, is we got a lot of juniors and a lot of seniors in that wide receiver room for Missouri.
Yeah, but I don't think Cook is I think he's more of a game manager than a game breaker. And I think that could be to Boston College's benefit.
Okay.
Saturday.
I like it. Thanks for the call,
Bold
Bill.
choice.
We appreciate you calling in to the show. You know, we talked about that yesterday. I asked you if you were interested. You said no, but
No,
I did look at that
I'm
one.
high on Missouri this year.
You are, but man, Boston College doesn't look bad. All right,
I'm low on Eli Drinkwitz. I'm high on Missouri.
high on the talent. Clue number 2. Diesel gave you the first clue an hour ago. It was a Southern tradition that brings back memories of childhood. Clue number 2, a moon not made from cheese. I think that is a strong clue there. Again, what clues are we talking about? Well, it's your chance to win a $25 Ingles gift card. If you know the clues and you're around the west side of Spartanburg, you can come by where we are at Warren Abernathy Highway.
Hey, Cole,
and
I got
enter
a
for a
question
chance
for
to
you.
win.
If the moon was made of blue cheese, would you eat it?
No.
I know I would.
Terrible.
Oh, the late
Terrible.
Harry Carey.
Terrible.
Fantastic bit. We got a lot of Tolos who have gotten their picks into us at 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. Give us your name, your game, and the spread. All three of those things need to be present to make your pick valid. But we got Mason Brew, who's taking Georgia State over Vandy, plus 10.5. Greenville Gamecock says, I'm taking the, not finishing that text, Greenville Gamecock, but he wants them plus 7 against LSU. Tiger Pal Rachel says her upset pick is South Carolina over LSU at 7 points. JD wants FIU plus 5 over FAU. Louisiana Tech plus 21.5 over NC State, says Clemson Oculus.
I like it.
Delvin going with Arizona plus 7.5 against Arizona State. Brian Andrews, FIU plus 5 over FAU. CJ from Greer says Oregon State plus 16 over Oregon. Going big,
How about
CJ. Gold Rush wants South Carolina plus 7 against LSU. Oregon State plus 16, says JT in Greer. Ty Duncan 864 wants Oregon State plus 16 over Oregon, as does Reed Atkins. April Mosley wants Colorado State over Colorado. April, help us out. We got to have your spread on your text message. Otherwise, it's an invalid pick. April, get your text back in with your pick attached.
And real quick, before we hit a break, I want to go over just a few daily wires. I know we had those coming up on the program. Atlanta Braves outdid the Nationals yesterday. They did get a win, Diesel, by a score of 12-0. The Braves and the Mets are both now 8 games back for a potential wild card. Max Fried on the mound tonight for Atlanta, 6:45. Quick update, no wire-to-wire tomorrow. Upset picks challenge window will continue, though. Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill, he's calling for Miami-Dade police officer to be fired following a now viral incident Sunday in which he was pulled from his vehicle. The NFL reported its highest Week 1 ratings ever, saying they averaged 21 million viewers per game. Wow, that's a big jump. The attorney for the teenager charged in the shooting, 49ers rookie Ricky Pearsall, says his client shouldn't be charged with attempted murder, saying it was an attempted robbery that resulted in a struggle and discharge of a weapon. Those are a few daily wires, and I know we have to run because we have a big segment coming up.
Yes, we do. The triumphant return of a fan favorite, the 5 o'clock fight with Melissa Level of Ingalls. She'll join us next. Cole and I will fight about it. That's on the other side right here on the Fan Upstate.
And the quick eye into the tracks.
Electrifying sports talk from start to finish.
You're going wire to wire
With Diesel and Cole Bryson.
on the Fan Upstate.
Oh, we got a radio show to do here. We're
watching the weather,
Jim
man.
Cantori.
You know how
Yeah.
he's pretending there's storms coming.
Yeah, there's
Right.
somebody with an air blower pointing at it to make it look like the rain
That's
is actually
right.
blowing sideways. We're live here at
Centaur.
8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway in Spartanburg, and we're joined right now by Melissa Level, Marketing Director of Ingles. She loves this segment. You love this segment. It's time to bring it back. It's time for the 5 o'clock fight.
Wait, hang on. I forgot to get to bed. Stall for like 2 seconds. You got this.
we have a bed music, and Rob
Okay,
Brown.
all right, say it. Say it again.
Oh.
Say it again.
It's time for the 5 o'clock fight. There he is.
All right, Rob, go.
He's a
Noles.
little slow.
I'm a professional.
You must play defense for the Florida State Seminoles.
Well, that's just rude, man.
Now, if you've forgotten how this segment goes, we have 3 different topics that Cole and I fight about. We have to disagree, and you, the Tolos, and Melissa Level sitting across from me will decide who wins each round of the 5 o'clock fight. You text in 71307, starting your text with keyword fan. You can also message in on the stream, on Facebook, on Twitter, or on YouTube. Let's get started with round number 1. Melissa, it's not going so hot for your Florida State Seminoles in
Yeah.
2024.
Oh yeah.
The question is, are things just going badly because of circumstance, or did things just go well for Florida State in 2023 because they captured lightning in a bottle? Is it team or is it program?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'll tell you, I know how I answer this. Diesel will dictate how or who Melissa agrees with, but I'll tell you that with the current state, you did. You set me up. The current state of college football, the way it is with NIL and so many players leaving, and it's a revolving door every single year. I'm going to say it was lightning in a bottle last year. And if you have issue with that, I just tell you, look, there's one simple way, that you can disagree with me. Go back and watch the first 2 games. Go back and or hey, watch Memphis and Florida State on Saturday. They're not good this year. They're not performing to expectations. They're not going to have the season that they expected. So, yeah, I think it is lightning in a bottle. Mike Norvell had a fantastic roster last year with one of the best quarterbacks in all the nation. And you know what? They did well. However, they did not finish the job, and a lot of that wasn't their fault. I know that. But at the end of the day,
Oh yeah, because those are fighting words right there.
They are.
I'll tell you.
I just wanted to keep it civil here.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what they did last year, as of right now, looks like a one-time occurrence.
Cole, I want to let you know that you've really backed me into a corner here. You put me in a tough spot. But, hey, everybody knows the song by Rush where he says, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. A lack of culture is in its own way a type of culture, right? Constant churn, the best of the best come here. And I think things just haven't worked out this year because for whatever reason, the cosmic gods have said, we're not going to make it happen for you this year. DJ sucks. We all knew DJ sucked. We all looked at this going into the season to say, well, DJ is probably going to suck. We all know who DJ is, but maybe we thought in this location, in this color uniform, things are going to be better for DJ. No, I think if DJ was playing lights out, this team would be far, far better. If DJ was playing even 75% of what we thought he was capable of coming out of Oregon State, that this team would probably be 2-0 right now. I don't think it was so much lightning in the bottle. I think it's that you just got a crappy quarterback this year.
Okay, I've got to say it's program. Okay, and the reason I say that is it's not the program from the school; it's the coaching and the coaches. And you had a coach that was during practice hitting his players with a squirt gun. Okay, all right, so they wouldn't get distracted and drop the ball when they were running it back on kickoffs. Okay,
Gotta get creative.
Okay, creative. Okay, they're not like 10. Okay, all right. I just have to tell you, we had the ball 58 seconds the first quarter against Boston College. Okay, you could have the best defense in the world. I think that everybody in our receiving core and our tight ends and anybody that might take a handoff from DJ should put a great big bullseye okay, on the top part of their uniform, okay? It can be garnered in gold, but it needs to be really big. And I think they ought to put a line that says, do not throw below here. And that goes across the knees, okay? That needs to happen. Okay, and then maybe that will work. But I have a problem with the fact that Norvell prided himself about using the commits and the NIL and then the portal. I mean, he was like the king last year, right? It's a rebuilding year. Okay, you should have the opportunity. You're going to expect a little bit of a drop, okay? But he's not utilizing the people that were part of the original culture last year. He could be putting Brock in right now. Okay?
The only pushback.
I just have a problem with that. I just have a problem with him, but I have a problem with the fact that there's some reason everybody's going to have a bit of a drop. You don't collapse.
Maybe this is the implosion year, and next year is the rebuilding year because you can't rebuild until you tear it all down.
Well, everybody left when we didn't get first of all, I think it sucks they left. Okay, but everybody, the whole place just bailed. We played the high school football team. That's how we played against Georgia. Okay, so it was embarrassing, but now we're losing our commitments. We've had 3 people decommit already. These are 4 and 5 star players. We are in a deep doo-doo.
The only pushback that I have, Melissa, when you talk about rebuilding, and 10 years ago, that was a term that got thrown around a lot. However, in today's landscape of college football with NIL and the portal, I'm kind of to the point now where I'm throwing that word out. Like, you can –
but you could have reinvested. Let me just put it that way.
That's true.
We had plenty of money. We had $120 million in the collective, plus that the college putting in $120 million. We had $240 million. We could have the best team anyway. I want an old school coach. Okay.
So you're done with Mike Norvell?
I'm done with him. Okay.
Wow.
I'm done with him.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, I almost picked Memphis as my upset special.
Wow.
Okay. They're only favored. Florida State's only favored by 6.5 points at home against Mike Norvell's old school. Okay. If he loses to them, I will personally drive the boat.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it's time for round number 2.
Nope, that's the wrong one. This one's the right one.
Oh, my gosh. You're a Florida State grad, too, aren't you?
Listen, it's been a long time since I've done this, Miss Melissa. You got to get back in the saddle sometimes,
Are you rebuilding?
I went 13-0 on my show this morning. I'm 0-2 today. Okay?
All right.
Happens to the best of us.
You're rebuilding.
Question number 2, round number 2. Who wins on Saturday, Memphis or Florida State?
Diesel, this one's a great question.
Are you going to back me in another corner here?
No, I don't know yet. Let me chew on this. Here's the deal. Memphis' quarterback and their receiving room, it's a veteran group. That's what should scare Florida State fans, is that they have a lot of experience on this Memphis football team.
He took them to their championship. He said that people have been there a while.
So
programs established.
Memphis is always a good team. And listen, they're not the giant killer that App State is, but let's be real right now. Florida State's not a giant, They're Pee Wee Herman, and I think that Memphis really.
You could have gone all day. All right, that's all I gotta say.
Melissa, I'll answer the question by saying, and then I'll throw it back to Diesel, and you can disagree or agree. Memphis does win. Memphis wins on Saturday. Florida State starts 0-3. Diesel, you disagree?
So Memphis is this year through 2 games showing themselves to be a very, very good football team. You know what Memphis has never really been? A program that keeps people there for a long time. There's just something about the University of Memphis.
Does that sound like anybody you know?
They want out of every single conference they've ever been in. They're miserable being in the AAC. They want out. Their players want out. They're a rolling, churning mess of NIL and transfer portal guys as well. Look, they don't have a culture at Memphis. They've got a team. So I think Florida State, who doesn't have a whole lot of culture this year, who is just a team, somehow, some way, will find a way to pull it out. I'm not saying that DJU finishes the game as the quarterback playing. I think there's a chance that Florida State the DJ gets through 2 quarters. Mike Norvell says, I got no choice. I got to go down the bench and find somebody who can sling the bean.
I think his name is Brock.
And Brock ends up winning the football game for Florida State.
Yeah, and our running back is out for this season. We have a couple of things to do, but let me just say this. If I were a Florida State player and I was an NIL player and I thought I could probably go someplace else, I may not try as hard to win as I would like to.
Really? Well, if you don't try as hard,
Wow.
then you're not putting up the stats. Then you're not as attractive.
Yeah,
to the
but
next
it's
school
only
who
one
wants
time
you.
you have to do it because I think if he loses to his former college
Yeah.
and he keeps DJ in it, I don't see him staying.
We were
I
talking.
don't,
We
take
started.
some of that $120 million and pay the guy off and tell
We
him to go
started the
bye-bye.
season wondering who was
Okay.
on the hotter seat, Mario Cristobal or Billy Napier.
It's true.
If he loses to Memphis,
To his
we're saying,
former team.
yeah, we're saying that Norvell is now on the hot seat.
Okay, who, by the way, is using all the NIL and doing all that stuff. I
Yeah.
said, does it sound familiar? One culture to the next, okay? I have to tell you, I want an old school coach that keeps a team together because they want to play there. And
Just like a Jimbo Fisher.
like a Nick Saban. He'd come back for us. I know
You think
he
you
would.
would? You think so?
I know. I think the only reason we did what we did with Mike Norvell because he was going to go to Alabama.
There you go. There
Okay,
you go.
he was going to go to Alabama. You know, our athletic directors are not the brightest bulbs in the Christmas tree. Okay,
We need to put some people of intelligence in control
we
down
could do
in
that, Rob.
Tallahassee.
Could we? We could go down there and do that. We can straighten it up. Let's go. But I have to tell you, I think, and I hate to say this, I almost picked them, but I think they're not. If Florida State wins, it's by a field goal.
So you're
All
going
right.
Florida State. So you're with Diesel 2-0 already
Yep.
today.
All right, let's see if I can make it the clean sweep with Melissa. And that's all I really care about. I just
That's
want
right.
to be number one in her heart. And we got one more round
you
to
both
go.
are.
One more fight, round number 3.
Nailed it.
So we've always had phenomenal. Great job, Rob. Third time's the charm. We have always
Maybe that's
had
good for us.
phenomenal debates with Melissa when it comes to NIL and things like that because you have experienced it
Mhm.
from the business side that's actually paying money to college athletes.
Right.
Multiple Michigan players led by Denard Robinson, who played prior to the 2016 cutoff for the House versus NCAA settlement, have begun a class action lawsuit claiming they should be entitled to damages and back pay because they played prior to the 2016 cutoff. Should there be, I'm not asking when it should be, but should there be a cutoff, a statute of limitations before which players who played before that date have no entitlement to NIL money?
I think there should be rules in place, and I think there absolutely has to be a cutoff. If there's no cutoff, there's no rules, and it's a free-for-all. It's a wild, wild west. How's anyone going to how's the NCAA going to even exist anymore with all the – yeah, there has to be a cutoff, in my opinion. You know, I get that these players back in 2010 might have been really good players, and they might have gotten a lot of NIL money back then, and it would have been a fantastic, fantastic gift to them and their family who maybe – didn't have that kind of money growing up. I get it, but there has to be rules
I
in
think
place.
they got an education.
Well, here's the problem, Cole, is you are now, whatever date it is you want to set, I'm not asking you what the date should be. You are now arbitrarily going to be deciding when the date is that players who played before this time don't deserve money.
Yeah.
And that is what gets sued and beaten in court. I'm with you that I think there should be a limitation. But as soon as you set that limitation, players that ended their college career a year before that date starts will now be the ones suing. Not Denard Robinson, who played prior to 2016. If you set it at 2010, a guy that came out of college in 2009 will sue. If you set it at the year 2000, a guy that came out in 1999 will sue. There can't be limitations on this. So as soon as this class action lawsuit wins, if it wins, all bets are off. The NCAA and these universities are going to have to go back pay basically to any living player who earned money for their university.
Well, you know what? We could go back and give Cam Newton the money that he didn't get, the difference between the money he got paid off. And
Yeah.
We could go do that, or maybe
I
Bush
joked
too.
earlier, why don't the
Yeah.
Goldmans sue on behalf of O.J. Simpson?
Let's get Vinny Testaverde.
Yeah.
Let's pay. I mean, let's go. Let's keep going. I just think the whole thing is just a cluster.
So should there be a limitation? Should there be a date?
I think it's a cutoff date, and you weren't here before then, so be it.
Okay.
Period.
Okay. There you go. So you're going
'Cause
with
I'm already
Cole
mad
on
at
this
them.
one.
I finally
Yes.
got
So
the
you're
list
going
on
with
one.
Cole on this one. What do you think, Utolo? 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. Give us your winners and losers for each round of the 5 o'clock fight. And if you want to suggest a 5 o'clock fight, here's how you do it.
What do you want Diesel and Cole Bryson to fight about?
Rob's 2 in a row. How about that?
Submit your topics to Diesel at thefanupstate.com. Subject line fight on the Fan Upstate.
I can't believe I couldn't get you to come with me on that last one.
No,
Melissa.
I think because I hate the idea of paying them to begin with.
I do
So,
too.
so if you just, I mean, for crying out loud, just make it started at a certain date. I can't go back and get back pay for, stuff. I mean, as an employee, these people are employees now.
Yep.
I mean, you got to treat them like regular employees. I just want to bring something up. 3 weeks ago, I sat here and I said to you, Tennessee is going to take the whole thing. Okay. All right. You laughed at me.
I did.
Yeah, you did.
I did. What whole thing are they taking again, just to clarify?
They're going to be in that playoff, at least in the top 4.
Top 4?
Top 4.
No chance.
That means you're calling them to win the SEC outright.
I think so.
Oh,
Wow.
They-
I mean, I think they're in the mix. I
Georgia's
think they're
already
very much in the
slipping.
mix.
Georgia's slipping. Texas will be a tough one, but I think it's Georgia's out of the number 1 spot as of today. Texas put in the number 1
Texas
now.
looks pretty
Melissa,
unbeatable.
Melissa.
But listen, that quarterback looked terrific against NC State. I thought it was a great game. I mean, I still think they may not win it all, but I think they are way better.
I
than
think
people.
Georgia beats them by 3 touchdowns.
They
today.
are way, way better
So
than they thought they were going to be.
it's still really early on Nico at the quarterback
the
at
Georgia
Tennessee.
players have to stay out of jail.
Yeah.
If they stay out of jail, they'll beat them. Maybe.
We'll have
And
to.
that prides me to say that, considering I'm coming
Yeah.
from the Florida State Criminals. Okay, I love saying stuff like that.
Right.
Change your mascot to the Florida State Crab Legs. How about it? Why don't you?
Melissa, I thought you would like this. I saw this earlier. You're a Florida State fan. They're in the ACC.
Right.
Through these first few weeks of early college football play, the ACC's looking pretty good, other than Florida State.
Right. Uh-huh.
5 quarterbacks rank in the top 15 in ESPN's QBR, the most of all conferences. Cam Ward, Miami, second, 94.9. Thomas Castellanos of BC, Cade Klubnik, Tyler
He was
Schaub.
playing against Florida State. Don't you get me?
That's true. And Haynes King, Georgia Tech. Again, 5 quarterbacks out of the ACC ranking in QBR top 15.
I agree with you on the Georgia Tech. I think he's a great guy. But also you can turn around and see NC State got blown out and Virginia Tech lost to Vanderbilt. Okay.
That's true.
All right. I think there's a balance everywhere. I mean, I think the ACC just in general sucks.
Madcraft says FS Who fans done lost
Yay.
their minds. Y'all are trying to pick a fight with Melissa. Y'all saying the words. We're in arms striking distance.
That's right. I can hit him.
He also calls them DJ, you got to be kidding me. McDonald's University, Hamburglar U. I'm sure you've heard all of these.
Listen,
None of these
I
are
agree. I could
You
not tell
agree.
you. I would like to go and, remember that we were talking about those fan things where you have the cameras on the helmets or you could go
Yeah.
out. Okay.
QR codes?
Okay. The QR codes. How is it? Okay. Maybe if you put a big QR code in his chest. Okay. So everybody would say, throw it here, throw it here. I mean, seriously, he is one of the worst quarterbacks Florida State is. And we had one that was 99 pounds.
Is he worse than Chris
Remember that
Winkie?
one? Okay.
Worse than Chris Winkie?
Okay. He's worse than that. Who was the guy
Pretty
that
soon
was the son of
Celsius is going to edit
Okay.
him out of that commercial.
Okay, who was the one that was the son of the coach? The guy that looked like a twig. He played against Clemson a couple years ago.
Rob Brown, Florida State.
He's an Argonaut. Don't get it twisted. Rob Brown doesn't even
University
like
of West Florida, baby.
Yeah, he doesn't even like Florida State.
Listen,
He's never heard of
we
Florida State.
absolutely want our team to do well.
That
Okay.
would have been Clint Trickett, the son of
Trickett.
the offensive line coach
There
at
you
the time,
go.
Rick Trickett.
He was like 1,000 feet tall, but he weighed like 99 pounds. Okay. And
Rick Trickett. He got called
he
Rickett
was
Trickett
famous
in high
for the
school.
flea flicker because that's all they could do because he didn't want to get hit.
That's
all right?
bad. That's a bad thing to be famous for.
I know. Hey, listen, there are some bright spots. We have a kicker that thank God he came back from Ireland. They came back from Ireland, okay, because we thought they were going to keep him. He did a 60-yarder.
We got this guy not sure.
That
He's
could
gonna
be the
fix
only
everything.
reason we beat Memphis is because we kick a. I don't want to say it. I'm not going to be. Give me
Bad,
that.
Wait a minute. You said you thought Ireland was going to keep your kicker?
Yeah, because I thought they got soccer over there. Okay.
Oh, make
my
more money
word.
over there.
I don't
beer
know if
for
he was
sure.
an NIL player, but I don't know.
Oh, gosh.
Put that
that's
kid on
great.
scholarship.
That's
That's right.
fantastic. Well, Melissa, thank you for playing along as
Thank you.
always. We'll get
I love
to.
you guys, and I love both of you.
We appreciate you. We love
She loves me
Eagles.
2 times and you 1
Two
time.
times today. Yes, you're right. You did get the win. We love Ingles as well. Our favorite day of the week is Wednesday, and because we get to be here at Ingles. Coming up next, Rob, I want to get you in the game as well. We play a game with 5 teams, NFL and college. Panic or patience? will play. You can play along as well. Next, 71307. Start your text with the word fan.
and Cole Bryson on Wire to Wire. This is the Fan Upstate.
It is a game we're going to play, Panic or Patience. You can play along. Tolo 71307. Start your text with the word fan. But first, let's go to the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone, where we have the Leprechaun of Lyman who wants to get his upset pick in.
Here me boys. First, me upset pick, and then I'll address me woes. First, give me Boston College over Missouri plus 17. It's a long shot, but I don't think Missouri's going to know what hit 'em. Just like me Irish didn't last week. Listen, I've been down in the dumps. A rat, you might say. 1 week we're flying a 747, and the next we're riding a tired Blue Jay. What happened? Tiddly who knows? All that's true is they stink. But it's time for me Irish to rise from this funk. Don't think on the past. Purdue, we're coming in. But those boilers be spoilers if you're not ready to win. We'll bounce back. The playoffs are still at hand. Win this game. Come on, boys, make a stand. I'll always be here cheering every game. Don't ever count out that grand old Notre Dame. Woo-hoo!
He's already drinking. It's 5:25 in the afternoon.
I'll tell you what, that sometimes you're just left speechless, and I'm not really sure how to comment that. Leprechaun of Lyman, we appreciate your upset pick. Great call, I guess. Maybe not, depending on who you ask. Great enthusiasm. Let's say it that way. All right.
He's shooting for the stars at this point,
He is.
Cole.
Diesel has clue number 3, and then we will get into Patience or Panic.
Yes, I do. If you think you know what product it is we're talking about, that's available inside of every single Ingles market, come on by and see us. We're at 8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway in Spartanburg. What product am I describing here? Clue number 1, a Southern tradition that brings back memories of childhood. Clue number 2, a moon not made from cheese. Clue number 3, layers and layers of cake, cream, and confection make up this delightful treat, partially named after a mathematical symbol.
You know, if you need 4 clues to get this one, I don't know what to tell you. But come down to the Ingles on the west side of Spartanburg, Warren Abernathy Highway, and if you want to win that $25 Ingles gift card, you can do so. More upset picks continue to come in. We need your name, the game, and the amount of points on the text line 71307. But before we talk to Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered in just about 10-15 minutes from now, Diesel and Rob, you want to hit the panic button, or are you choosing the side of patience? That's the question. We will all three give our answer, panic or patience. Tolos, you can play along as well. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. 71307 is the way you can text the show. Start your text with the word fan. Panic or patience? Diesel, you go first on this one. Notre Dame, who now has, by the way, a 23% chance to make the college football playoff in 2024. Are you going panic or patience with the Irish?
Oh, you're in full panic mode at this point, right? Like something is clearly amiss when it comes to the coaching staff and their preparation apparatus that got them ready or didn't get them ready against Northern Illinois. You outclassed Northern Illinois at every single phase of the game. You have a more talented offensive line. You have a more talented defensive line. You have talent on the receiving corps. You have talent in the running backs room, way more than they have, yet they still beat you because you did not show up to play that day. That is a coaching staff that is not adequately preparing and telling their kids you can lose any game that you play. You don't play up to your potential, you will lose. And so they had to get that lesson the hard way. There is a problem inside the coaching staff at Notre Dame because this happens way too much at Notre Dame. So panic.
All right, Rob Brown, Notre Dame, panic or patience?
I'm going to say patience. I like Marcus Freeman a lot. I agree with everything Diesel just said. You know what the best way to learn a lesson in a fight is? To screw up and get punched right in the damn mouth. And that's exactly what just happened to Notre Dame. Lessons learned. And here's the better part. Purdue, Miami of Ohio. A Louisville team I think is a bit overrated without a true quarterback. Stanford, Georgia Tech, who tricked me. They lost to Syracuse this weekend. Navy, bad at FSU, Virginia Army. There's one game left on the schedule that I think Notre Dame, even after the L to NIU, is going to be a dog, and that's at number 11 USC. And there's a lot of football for Lincoln Riley between here and there. The schedule sets up well for the Irish. They've got one L on the books. Yeah, bad one. But now they've got punched in the face, and now they know how to defend themselves. I'm going to give Marcus Freeman a chance to steer this thing back onto the track.
You know what? I do think this one's a tough one. I think this is a tough save because I think Marcus Freeman's a good coach. I really do. And you know what? 2-3 years from now, maybe they figure it out. Maybe Marcus Freeman wins a national championship at Notre Dame. However, I'm looking at this year. You lose to NIU. As Diesel said a minute ago, you're supposed to beat them in every single facet. You didn't. You got beat. You don't have the schedule to regain that momentum. You're not going to beat USC at the end of the season. You might not beat Louisville. You don't have the games to go reprove yourself. And for that reason, I say panic on Notre Dame.
We have a texter who got in and said, I think Diesel was right last week. You just want to stop right there.
Yeah.
You just stop right there. No, he says, when Diesel said he was concerned about Notre Dame switching from quarterback to quarterback with NIL every year. There is a time and a place to use the transfer portal, to fill holes, to fix deficiencies. It cannot and should not be your main MO, your modus operandi for how you acquire talent. And Notre Dame has made that their number one way to acquire talent at the quarterback position, and it's hurting them. It's obvious.
All right, let's go to number 2 on the list. For panic or patience, we're going to go from college football to a little bit of a sore subject. Sorry, guys, but we got to do it. Diesel, Rob Brown. Rob Brown, we'll go to you first on this one. Panic or patience, put you on the spot. Carolina Panthers.
Anybody who has not and will not say patience is a filthy casual. All right? Of course it's patience. All right? Listen to me. You got a quarterback, it's his second year. I'm considering this Bryce Young's rookie year. He came in last year to a dumpster fire of a team that was inside of a slightly larger dumpster fire. You got 3 new offensive linemen across the front. 2 of them brand new to the team, 1 moving to a new position. He's behind a new offensive lineman. Last year's number 1 wide receiver is now your number 3 wide receiver. Your number 1 wide receiver came over from a different team where he was a number 2 wide receiver. Your number 2 wide receiver was last year's number 4 wide receiver. Your number 4 wide receiver is a rookie.
Breathe,
Whole new
Rob.
crew there. The only thing you've got going for you consistent from last year is your running back field. You got a brand new head coach who it's his first year as a head coach. It's his second year as a play caller, but he didn't call plays for this team last year. So he is learning the ropes as well. And you put all your resources, limited as they were, into rebuilding the defense, into the offense, which means you knew coming in the defense wasn't going to get better. This was never a year to succeed. This is a year to grow. This is a year to get better. Carolina's winning 5 games minimum this year. They ran up against a future first ballot Hall of Famer in Derek Carr in week 1. They will course correct. Trust me.
All right, Rob Brown says patience. Diesel, Carolina Panthers, panic or patience?
You got to have patience here, because if you panic and if you start doing the thing that we all really, really think Dave Tepper is going to do, then you're going to stay in this cycle forever, right? He will never, ever trust any player ever again. So you go and you draft another quarterback, and then what if he doesn't work? You go draft another quarterback, and then you fire a coach, and then you draft another quarterback, and then you fire, and all of a sudden you are the Cleveland Browns of the last 25 years. So you have to have patience. You cannot be so rash and turn this into your franchise culture.
Diesel, Rob, I'm going to go against the grain. Both of you, there's nothing that I've seen that gives me hope from this team. The talent, the wide receivers, the offensive line, the head coach. I know it's 1 game. Bryce Young, we saw 1 season plus 1 game, and it mainly has to do with Bryce Young. I'm ready to hit the panic button on Bryce Young. You know, I've tried to hold out hope. I've tried to give him the benefit of the doubt because he came from a Nick Saban football team. However, I'm hitting the panic button. They didn't look bad. They looked horrible against Rob Brown's New Orleans, Derek Carr-led Saints. And I'll tell you this, there's no getting better. You lost Derek Brown. What are you going to do this year to magically get better? They're done. It's time to hit the panic button. All right, a few more remaining before we talk a little SEC football. Let's go up north, Diesel. Oh, Michigan had a tough weekend. Are you saying panic or patience for Michigan?
With Michigan, man, that's a tough one.
It is tough.
You got to be – I think you got to be in patience mode. I mean, Sharon Moore, he got the job for a reason, right? He said all the right things. He is an intelligent football mind. You know that the offense is bereft of talent because so much of what made them special offensively is now playing in the NFL. The defense should be pretty good, but the defense ran up against a buzzsaw that is the Texas Longhorns. I don't like using the phrase generational talent or GOAT-level team because, I mean, there's been a GOAT-level team every year for the past, 5 years, right? Oh, LSU, the year Joe Burrow won the national championship, the greatest football team we've ever seen. And then they said the same thing the next year about Georgia, and they said the same thing the next year about somebody else. So they're just really, really, really good. Texas is offensively, and Michigan just didn't have anywhere near the firepower to try to stay with them.
Roberto, what do you say on Michigan, buddy?
Panic or not, panic or patience, 100% depends on what your expectations were, right? If your expectations were Carolina Panthers are going to come in and just be a dramatically better ball club, you're panicking. If your expectations were that they were going to trend upwards over the long haul, you're not. Michigan. How did you expect? They lost their starting quarterback. They lost Blake Corum, who was 99.99999% of their offense last year carrying the football. They didn't have to ask J.J. McCarthy to do a damn thing in their run-up to a championship. They just gave it to 27 and let him do his. I'm not worried about Sharon Moore. I think Sharon Moore is fine. He learned from Jim Harbaugh. The team's got his back. The reality is you took a gigantic step back in talent, including a pair of guys who were top 1 or 2 round draft picks as the most 2 important positions on the football field. So if you expected Michigan to be an auto contender for the Big Ten championship when Ohio State's as good as they are, when you brought in Dan Lanning and the Ducks, etc., I think your expectations were out of whack before the season starts. If your expectations were just be consistent and be competitive, I don't think you're panicking right now. You lost to a damn good Texas team.
That's fair. I agree with both of you on this. You lost to maybe the second best team in the country. I mean, let's call it like it. Texas is very, very good. I don't think there's reason to panic yet with Michigan. I think the sample size is far too small to hit the panic button. One more, then we'll run a little early because we have Chris Phillips of SCC Unfiltered. Let's go to Colorado. Diesel. Panic or patient?
Oh, you're in panic mode if you're a Buffaloes fan. You know that you're being exposed on a scale that nobody else could fathom. Look, everybody thought that Deion was going to magically flip a switch and turn this program around. And he's had 2 years to do it with the biggest marketing machine you could possibly have behind them, right? He's got ESPN essentially in his hip pocket, parroting everything it is he has to say. They've got the money. Clearly, they can throw it around. And the problem is we've got a culture issue in Colorado. You've got a quarterback who's throwing his offensive line under the bus. Yeah, you've got some incredibly, incredibly talented receivers and defensive back there. But there's something wrong in that locker room. And if I'm a Buffaloes fan, I am just hoping for a couple of more feel-good moments this year so that we can all look back and say, at least we won 4 or 5 games this year. Wasn't that fun? But this program is never going to be better than 4 or 5 under Deion. Once his sons move on, he's not going to have that marketing machine behind him either. So panic mode in Boulder.
Rob Brown, real quick, before we run, what say you?
Panic about the future, not about this year. You talk about the marketing machine. My guy, that's all Deion Sanders is. No, not everybody thought Deion was going to go in there and fix that program because Deion's a celebrity, a wonderful celebrity, a celebrity I've enjoyed. He ain't a football coach.
He's a salesman.
That's it. He didn't win at Jackson State because he's a great coach. He won at Jackson State because he went and got Travis Henry, was supposed to be a Florida State recruit, and got him to come there. He just put 11 of the best athletes at a low-level college on the field and out-athleted everybody. It don't work like that at the FBS Power 4 level. He's not a good coach. He is being exposed. I'm glad it's happening. I'm glad we can move on past this. I hope that you all learned your lesson last week. If I'm a Colorado fan, I'm freaking out because you are going to be set back further post Dion than the spot you were in when Dion got there in the first place. And when I'm watching guys like Matt Rule, that you could have gone after Colorado, but instead you got Dion do what he did to Dion this weekend. R.I.P. Buffs. You're
rough.
Cooked for the next 5 years.
That's rough. Hard to disagree there. And we'll have the SEC Unfiltered. Chris Phillips. I know you got him coming up, Diesel, but I will say I agree with both of you.
Yeah.
It's time to panic.
Yeah, they're in a rough spot. And, hey, they were averaging 1 win a season for the past 10 years. Guess what? That can always go down. You can always win 0. Hey, you can have the nation's longest losing streak after your celebrity head coach decides this ain't fun anymore. I'm out the door. We are going to have some fun, though, with our very next guest, Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. We're going to go round the SEC conference, talk, of course, South Carolina, LSU, talk Kentucky, talk Texas, talk Georgia, all that. Coming up next right here on the Fan Upstate. We try as much as we can to cater to you ACC fans, but we know who the big dog is in the area, in the state of South Carolina. It is the biggest and best league, of course. The cream rises to the top, and you follow it. We're joined right now live by Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. He is the man to talk to when it comes to SEC football. And the biggest burning question, Chris, that everybody really wants to know, does South Carolina stand a chance against LSU? The defense played phenomenally last Saturday, The offense played well enough, and that's good enough to win you a lot of games in the SEC. But can South Carolina do it again and pull the big upset with game day?
Diesel Cole, first things first, guys, appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure. They absolutely stand a chance. I mean, I think anybody who's ever been to Williams-Brice Stadium or watched a game there or even caught one on TV and has seen that environment. I mean, it's one of the best atmospheres in all of college football. Also, you look at the way South Carolina coming into this one with momentum. You know, I know the offense is still a work in progress, but I mean, defensively, for real. Now, they're going to get tested this weekend. Garrett Nussmeier and that LSU offense and that LSU offensive line that has not surrendered a sack all season long. It'll be the defensive front's biggest test yet. But, I mean, guys, this plays right into the hands of, home underdog, looking for the upset, a really desperate crowd, I think, looking for that 3-0 start. South Carolina absolutely has a chance. Will they capitalize on it? That's yet to be seen.
Hey, Chris, if I gave you a $10 bill and said, put it on whoever you think will win the SEC, and I only gave you two options, the Longhorns and the Bulldogs, which are you placing the $10 bill on?
I'd still go with Georgia. Texas beating Georgia and Austin in the preseason, and I think that's a good chance that happens. But I had Georgia getting revenge in Atlanta against the Longhorns as well. So I'd still place the bet on Georgia. I mean, listen, I know Texas is the hot commodity right now. Georgia they flashed in week one, but I'm not going to punish the Dogs for, playing Tennessee Tech last week. And again, Texas is kind of the hot new flavor of the week. So I would still go with UGA, but I mean, Texas was certainly impressive in the Big House.
Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered joining us here on the Fan Upstate, 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 FM in Spartanburg. Chris, what happened to Brock Vandagriff? I mean, the Wildcats put up 31 points in a shortened game in week one against USM. Just an awful showing against South Carolina. How do you explain that? Is it all Clayton White and the way he schemed against him? Did Brock's girlfriend break up with him the night before the game? I mean, what went down there? And if he has another awful performance against Georgia, is his starting job in question?
Yeah, I don't know if he had any relationship issues. I didn't look into it quite that far. But, I think Dylan Stewart happened. Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard. And you got to give South Carolina's defense credit first. They had a really good game plan. They came after him. The way they were able, guys, to whip Kentucky up front, which is something Kentucky has done a lot to South Carolina over the last decade. It seems that's turning, obviously, with 3 straight wins over the Cats. But, guys, Kentucky had 22 dropbacks in that game. And South Carolina got pressure on 20 of those 22 dropbacks.
Wow.
And they weren't having to send extra guys a whole bunch. So we talk about it all the time, and, cliches are cliches for a reason. You win games this league in the trenches, both offensively and defensively, and South Carolina just dominated the line of scrimmage. I mean, Brock Vandagriff also was not good, but the line play was so bad, guys, I feel like he just never had a shot. So certainly if he struggles against Georgia, and I think he probably will struggle against Georgia, maybe you start to discuss, do you put the backup in? Do you look for a spark? But, I mean, dude, this is the guy you went out in the portal and got. So I kind of feel like you've got to see this one out, but I certainly don't think he ever wants to see any more of Dylan Stewart. That South Carolina defense, because they were relentless on Saturday.
Hey, Chris, when you look at the Auburn Tigers or the fan base, let's just talk about the fan base. Do you think there's still belief and hope from the Auburn fan base in Hugh Freeze?
In Hugh Freeze, yes. In Peyton Thorne, no. And I think Peyton Thorne stinks, if you're my honest opinion. So the longer Hugh Freeze sticks beside Peyton Thorne and puts his faith and trust in him inexplicably, listen, I think we've seen it in many different facets, many different ways. We've seen other examples of this. Like, the faith and belief can start to slip a little bit, right? I mean, that loss to Cal was inexcusable. I mean, Auburn folks this time last week were joking around with me about, is Auburn going to cover or not? There was never even a thought that they might lose that game. And then he goes out there, throws 4 interceptions. At some point, you just are who you are. So I expect to see Hank Brown this week against New Mexico. You know, it sounded like Hugh Freeze kind of hinted at the fact that they've opened the competition up a little bit. And I think you have to, because again, at some point, guys, I mean, you're a 5th-year player. You're not a freshman. At some point, the light bulb is just not going to click. So do I think they still believe in Hugh Freeze right now? Yes. The loss to Cal did not help. And I think sticking with Peyton Thorne throughout the season will not help either. So, you know, New Mexico, they're probably going to slap around and win pretty good. But that game upcoming next weekend against the Arkansas Razorbacks on the Plains, that one's going to be really, really interesting for the optics of, you know, if you lose that one with Oklahoma upcoming, things just start to get a little bit hairy down there in Auburn.
Chris, don't talk to me about Arkansas. I had them as my upset pick last week, and they screwed me over right there at the very end.
Yeah.
Chris Phillips joins us here to talk SEC football every week. Chris, who do you project as the better NFL quarterback? And I ask this on behalf of the Carolina Panthers. Should they not win for Quinn or let it go to heck for Beck?
That's a really good question. I would probably say Quinn Ewers right now. And I'm a big fan of Carson Beck, but projecting from the NFL standpoint, I would probably go Quinn Ewers. I feel like I've seen a little bit more from him. Love the leadership qualities. Obviously, I mean, they both have big arms. And like I said, I think we're kind of splitting hairs when we talk about these two guys, because you're talking about essentially 1-2 or 1-3 or 2-3, depending on where you think Jackson Dart should be. But I would probably side with Quinn Ewers right now. If I were building my franchise, I would go with him.
Chris, Diesel mentioned the upset pick. I got to know, man, I have not picked mine. You know, Memphis intrigues me, not going to lie, but who is Chris Phillips rolling with in the upset picks challenge?
Yeah, I need a W, guys. I'm really hurting.
I'm with you right there at 0, Chris.
Yeah. Arkansas was a great pick. That was. I had them money line in my bets, and they really choked that one away. Funny enough, I have to tell Diesel this. I was actually with a guy last weekend that just for fun threw a money line bet on Appalachian State, and that one was over before it even started. That was unfortunate. But don't mean to bring it up, but I had to. I'm gonna go with TCU plus 2.5. I know it's not a huge spread, but I'm just trying to get on the board. They're the home team, they're the home dog. Again, TCU playing UCF. I'm gonna go with the Horned Frogs.
There you go.
I don't hate that.
There you go. That is Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. We could carry this conversation. We can honestly sit and have a 4-hour show together, Chris, because you're always a fascinating guest to bring on. I invite everybody who's listening to look you up across all your socials. Look up SEC Unfiltered. Does a fantastic job on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. Your YouTube channel is popping over there as well, man. There's a reason why bigger and bigger show hosts keep inviting you on, because you do a fantastic job. Just don't forget us when you start going on ESPN National, would you?
Never. Guys, no, I appreciate y'all. Diesel Cole, y'all the best, man. Always enjoy it.
That's Chris Phillips. Appreciate his time as well. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll reset just like we did in the 4 o'clock hour with upset picks, as well as we asked the question. Today, a day that you should never forget. Where were you 23 years ago? Today, he's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryce and Rob Brown. Back in the Ingalls Market Studios. We're live on Warren Abernathy Highway in Spartanburg at Ingalls. We'll do it again. One more hour coming up next on the Fan Upstate. Final segment of the show, final hour of the show, rather, not final segment, putting the cart before the horse. We are live at 8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway in Spartanburg. So good to be with you alongside Diesel, Melissa, Jay. Everyone is here today, and it's a great day to be at Ingles. Every day is a great day. The Upset Picks Challenge rolls on, but first, with it being our number 4 of the show, I want to give you clue number 4, your chance to win a $25 Ingles gift card. Well, how do you win? You come by the store, 8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway. For you locals, it's the west side of Spartanburg. Enter your name. We've already had a few entries. You can win a $25 Ingles gift card. Clue number 1 was a Southern tradition that brings back memories of childhood. Clue number 2 was a moon not made from cheese. Clue number 3, layers and layers of cake, cream, and confection make up this delightful treat, partially named after a mathematical symbol. And clue number 4, a pie that is out of this world. That, Diesel, I said it earlier, if you can't guess this, you can't win the $25 gift card, because I think in all the clues,
it's maybe the easiest one.
There's no doubt.
It
may be. It is. It is the easiest one we have ever given on the Fan Upstate. So check us out, Warren Abernathy Highway, if you want to a chance to win that $25 Ingles gift card. All right, Upset Picks. It rolls on. Well, you just tuned in. You're new to the show. What is Upset Picks? Well, it's your chance to lead the Upset Picks Challenge brought to you by Ingles. So basically, in all of college football, you have a chance to earn points. How do you do it? You take a game. Let's say, for example, South Carolina, the underdog this weekend against LSU. You want the Gamecocks 6.5. What is it, 6.5?
7 points.
7 points now. You take the Gamecocks plus 7. Guess what? You text in your name, the game, and the amount of points to 71307. Start your text with the word fan. And if the Gamecocks win the game outright, you get 7 points.
That is very key. We are not playing against the spread. You are trying to call the outright upset.
And that's
the game
hard,
is
man.
difficult. It's hard. I've come very close. 2 out of 3 weeks. If I had hit on both of those, Cole, I'd be sitting right there in the middle of the leaderboard. Yet I am all the way at the bottom because my upset pick teams just haven't gotten it done. Where do you go to get the spreads? We had somebody text in earlier and ask that question. You go to ESPN.com. That is the website we use for our picks. You go there and you find the spread, and we lock them in as of 3 o'clock on Wednesdays. We do that so that somebody who maybe looks at it, takes a game on Thursday or Friday, doesn't get 7.5 points for that game because LSU fans have bet it up. Yeah. No, you get the 7 points that was locked in as of Wednesday, and it's okay if you're off by 0.5 point when you text in your spread.
We'll fix it,
because we'll fix it for you. We'll make sure that everybody who picks the same game gets the exact same number of points. So you go to ESPN.com, find a game that you think the betting underdog has a really good chance to win, and then you text us. If your name is John, you'd say, "This is John. I want South Carolina plus 7 versus LSU." That's what you got to send in.
That's what you got to send. And again, if you do it on Thursday or Friday and the points have changed a little bit, as Diesel said, it'll automatically go to the amount of points that was screenshotted, locked in at 3 p.m. on Wednesday. You can't see those, but we'll adjust it on our end so that you all have the same amount of picks. So, Upset Picks Challenge starts right now. You know, I think it's fascinating, Diesel, that this week's games, I want to call it a down week in college football. However, when I look across the slate, I don't find many marquee games, right? And maybe you say this is disrespectful for me to say, but College Game Day being in Columbia Saturday should tell you all you need to know about the slate of games for Saturday. I'm just going to tell you. I'm going to tell you that. That's
no. They follow the hot hand, right? They follow the story. I don't know what you're saying. Beating Kentucky should not be a story, right? You're South Carolina. You should be beating Kentucky 3 out of 5 years minimum. Probably 4 out of 5 years. You ought to be beating Kentucky. But everybody knows the South Carolina program has been down bad for a while. Kentucky had your number for a while. You've now won 3 in a row, and you're a story. People are obviously starting to pay attention. And I'm telling you, Cole, that's what's dangerous about this South Carolina Gamecocks program and Shane Beamer. You give Shane Beamer a platform and you give him the weight of the ESPN marketing machine behind him, he's going to take advantage of that. He is going to beat that drum as loud as he possibly can all over ESPN for 3 hours on Saturday morning. If you're a South Carolina Gamecock fan, it's going to be glorious.
Yeah, it should be. And I think they've got a chance. When you talk about College game day, though, I don't think Alabama, Wisconsin moves the meter enough. You know, I wouldn't have been surprised if that's where they picked College game day to be. Oregon, Oregon State wouldn't have shocked me. Both teams 2-0, but that's not going to be a close game. Oregon should blow them out. We don't know if Carolina, Kentucky, or Carolina, LSU will be a close game. We think it will. I think it will be a close game.
Given the weather, they're going to wish they were at Wisconsin, not in Columbia.
That's true, and I don't know if they've done it yet, but if it is bad as they say, they might have to move College game day into Dawn's house, in the basketball arena to avoid weather. Still don't know exactly what the weather will look like on Saturday morning. Still a few days out. But, Diesel, upset picks challenge for this week. I'll start with you on this one. Have you locked in your official upset picks yet?
Yes, I have.
Ooh.
Yes, I have. I am taking Arizona over Kansas State.
Friday night.
I like that one a lot. I can get my points on Friday night and feel good going into the weekend. Arizona has been putting up a ton of points so far this season. I get it. It's against lesser competition, but I do like the Wildcats and what they're doing a lot.
You know what? I don't hate that one. I really don't. I think this week, when you look at the entire slate of games, though, it is extremely difficult. I was very confident last week in South Carolina over Kentucky. I really was. And they were a big underdog on the road, got me 10 points. Memphis, Florida State could be an intriguing game because, Florida State's down bad. They're 0-2. Let me say that quietly because Melissa's still here. I don't want to, get kicked out of Ingles here on this Wednesday. But, Memphis has a legit shot. They do. You can't say that this game's a gimme. This isn't a homecoming game. This isn't a chalk it up as a easy win for Florida State. It's just simply not. So that one is one that I'm looking at. I can't remember who it was earlier, but we had a caller that took Boston College over Missouri. 16.5. Diesel, if you're somewhere in the middle of the pack like I am at 10 points and you hit on Boston College.
It was Leprechaun of Lyman.
Oh, was it? Leprechaun of Lyman. If you hit on that, I mean, buddy, are you sitting pretty or what?
He needs something good to happen to him. That's for sure.
He does. I'm not going to take Boston College over Missouri. However, I was very close to doing so. I looked at it. It's a big opportunity to score big, 16.5 points. I'd be at 26.5 points. I just don't have a lot of faith in Boston College defense. You just hadn't seen enough yet. They hadn't played anybody that's really good yet.
Well, if this game was being played in Boston, not to say that there's a ton of support behind Boston College in Boston. We know it's a pro town. We know people only pay attention when you're a winner, and you got to do it more than 2 weeks in a row to really get that city's attention. But if that were the case, I'd be willing to say this would be a 14-point spread, maybe a 10.5-point spread. And I may be more inclined to go with Boston College. But this game is at Missouri. They got their own friendly confines. They got their own fan base that is now rabid because they are really, really energized and galvanized with what Eli Drinkwitz has done there at Missouri. Should still be doing it at App State, but he left us. So I don't think Boston College really stands much of a chance in this one. I think this one gets ugly.
Oh, man. And you know what? There's just not enough. I haven't seen enough to pick them. Now, this game, Diesel, would not tally you a lot of points. However, you'd have a very good shot, in my opinion, of getting on the board. I know you've already made your pick. I'm still narrowing it down to 2 or 3, but you could get an easy 3.5 here if you trusted A&M to go on the road in the swamp and beat Florida. Florida, I think Florida has an opportunity to win this game, believe it or not. I know they're favored. Yeah, it's at home. So what Vegas is basically telling you is, look, this is a pick 'em between Florida and Texas. Diesel, I want to take this one. Number one, it's too low of a points to take. Number two, I don't trust A&M yet. Like, I know they had a good win over Notre Dame. I just don't trust them yet. So for that, I'm sorry, I misspoke. It was the other way around with Notre Dame A&M. I don't trust A&M yet enough. I think Florida could win at home, so I'm not going to pick this one. But if you had to pick this one, -3.5, Florida the home favorite, would you go with the Gators?
No, I would not.
Really?
No, I would not. The Florida Gators program is down bad. Yeah, they've got some talent. They've got a lot of talent on that field, but I think there's just something festering in that locker room. They are not playing together football, and for that reason, I'm going with A&M. I like what Mike Elko's doing. I like his personality. I like what he did at Duke before he took the job there at Texas A&M, and I believe he's going to get the culture right in College Station.
I think so. It's one of those things where the resources that he has, like Mike Elko, I'm not saying he has to go win 2 or 3 national championships, Diesel, but boy, you've got more resources than just about anybody else. You're in Texas.
Yeah.
You've got the money.
Piles of cash.
Yeah. So you've kind of got to go and win. I'm not saying win immediately in the first few years, but man, he's in an interesting situation. Now, I did look at this. Old Dominion's lost 2 back-to-back games, right, Diesel? They lost to South Carolina. They lost to Eastern Carolina last week. And by the way, shout out to Rajay Harris, former Burns Rebel of ECU, who had a great game on Saturday.
You know who's got
Old
ECU this week?
App State.
App State.
2-point spread, I believe. Very close spread. But the Old Dominion Virginia Tech game, Diesel, it interests me. It's a big point spread, 14.5 in favor of Virginia Tech. But are we really sold? They lost to Vandy. Are we sold on VT? I'm just saying a team without a win that's 0-2, playing a team that's not great. I think Old Dominion is a good play here.
Well, Old Dominion's always going to be a gritty football program, right? Like they're never going to be picked to win the Sun Belt Conference, especially when you've got programs like App State and like James Madison in that conference that are presumed to be the power year in and year out. Old Dominion is sitting right there in a recruiting hotbed. I don't know how much of their talent they get out of their own backyard.
Yeah.
But Hampton Roads, man, they put some talent into the sport. And if they can tap into that, then they've got a really, really quality roster. Can they beat Virginia Tech? I think they can. But the question is just, are they going to come into this game pissed off? Are they going to come into this game angry? I think they're going to come in angry enough to cover, but I wouldn't pick them to win.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you my pick. Diesel, I almost took Colorado State over Colorado. It's a 7-point spread in favor of Deion Sanders. However, I think they might win. I think Deion might win on Saturday, so I'm not taking that one. I almost took Boston College. And then there was one more that really had me intrigued, and it was Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee State, or Middle Tennessee, rather. Western Kentucky on the road is favored by 7 over Middle Tennessee. I'm torn between 2. The 2 is Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky, and Old Dominion, Virginia Tech. I'm going to take Diesel gut feeling. I'm taking Middle Tennessee over Western Kentucky at home. They're a 7-point dog at home. I almost took Old Dominion, but I agree with you. I don't think Old Dominion has the talent and the guys on the outside to keep up with Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech wins. So my upset pick, one more time, Middle Tennessee at home will beat Western Kentucky, who comes into that game in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, as a 7-point favorite. I don't know mascots. You do. Give me the Middle Tennessee.
Middle Tennessee are the Blue Raiders.
Blue Raiders. I am team Blue Raiders this weekend. So that's my upset pick. Rob Brown, I know that you in the morning, you talk college football. You do a great job covering college football. For whatever reason, you do not participate in the Upset Picks Challenge. And I know that, Diesel and I haven't reached the status and level of Rob Brown yet. So you're stooping down playing in the Upset Picks Challenge. I get it. But if you were this weekend, which dogs do you like?
I mean, first off, you can't be mad about somebody not showing up to the party when they ain't caught an invite to the party, all right? I didn't know I was invited. I'm not trying to walk up in here and step on the absolute freight train of a program that is Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. That ain't I can't overshadow. I can't stand in the shadow. But I will play along. I kicked around a couple. I kicked a few around back and forth. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll flash back to last year when we played a game out in Boulder, Colorado. The Colorado State Rams went up against Dion and his kids. This year, they got to go back out to Fort Collins. This year, they're going to play at Canvas Stadium. And Jay Norvell and the gang, they got a little something for Dion. That's the same team. They got it handed to him by the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Matt Rule put the blueprints out there on exactly what to do to get to Shador. Shador melted down in the press conference. How many times did they hit Dylan Raiola? Threw his offensive line under the bus, threw his running backs under the bus, threw his OC under the bus. Ladies and gentlemen, the Colorado Buffaloes are melting down. On the flip side, Colorado State, the Rams, they got revenge on the brain. Give me the Rams at home. I'm going to lock them in at a tutty as a dog. -7. Go ahead and just write me up towards the top of the board, boys. I'm in. I'll see you every damn Thursday for the rest of this season. I'm here for it.
So you're officially invited now. You're officially in. That was my mistake, Diesels. We'll own up to it, okay? We didn't invite you. We apologize, but now you have been extended the official invitation. Rolling against Deion Sanders.
Rob, I just want to know, how did you not know? Your life is like a YouTube TV split screen where you're watching and paying attention to everything all at the same time. You're paying attention to sports. You're just paying attention to wrestling. And yes, I separated those two because wrestling is not a sport. You're paying attention to everything. I know you're a nerd just like me. You're into so many different things. Come on, man. You can't tell me you didn't know about this competition.
Oh, I knew about it. You understand? There's a difference between knowing about the party and being invited to them. Nobody likes the guy who just shows up at the party, especially when he doesn't bring anything to the party. Now I know I got an invite. Now I know the door is open. Now I know I get to go head to head with not just my own listeners, but now the listeners of the Tolo gang as well.
What are you bringing to the party, though? What are you bringing?
I'm bringing the noggin. I'm bringing the noise. I'm bringing a dub back to Team The Rob Brown Show.
I'd rather you bring a 6-pack of beer. If I had a choice, I'd rather you bring that.
For the record, you're the one at Ingles right now.
Oh,
you're
he got
to
you.
it than
He
I
got
am.
you on that one.
He's got me.
He did get you. I don't hate it. I don't hate the Colorado. But at the end of the day, are they a bleep show? Are they a dumpster fire? Maybe they are, but they've got dudes. They've got dudes on the outside that can go, and that's what worries me in this game. I think they could. I think Colorado wins Saturday.
So we got
There was a clip going around. Oh, sorry, I'm going to interrupt. There was a clip going around from one of Texas A&M's coordinators, and he said, when talent meets talent, talent don't mean a damn thing no more. It's all about grit, dedication, drive. That team is a bunch of dudes that are in it for the NIL, in it for the brand. They're in it to be the next Deion Sanders. It ain't a team. They have fallen apart. The wheels are off. The Rams.
Grit, determination, hard work. Speaking of hard work, Dan B has made a celebrity appearance. He is across the way from us. Dan, I know you like to wait a little bit. You and Just Jess, you hang back, gather some more information. You don't always get your upset picks in first. Do you have a lean at this point? I'm not asking you for your pick, but do you have a lean?
I do not actually have a lead right now.
So it's because you just wait till the last minute to get your pick in. Understood. But you somehow keep scoring points in this challenge. How do you do it?
No, I haven't scored anything yet.
Are you over?
I'm over.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, all three teams were winning in the fourth quarter.
Now, I have a question for you, Dan B. I know you and your wife both participate. How would you feel if the wife beat you this year, had more points than you?
I mean, she's done it in the past.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow. Not the first time.
Not the first time.
Yeah, she's been on the board every year.
Really?
Just like I have. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I came in third last year, but I think she came in 8th or 9th the
Coming
previous
in
year,
third,
and I was like 17th or 18th.
Coming in third's impressive.
I mean, truly, finishing with points is impressive in this challenge over the course of a season, but finishing in that 30-plus point range, that's how you get yourself very close to the top of the leaderboard. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and play our conversation from earlier with Kelley Ford of K Ford Ratings. He is an analytics guru, and you're going to learn a lot from him. He is especially very high on one Palmetto team this weekend. Who is it? We'll talk about that next with Kelley Ford on the Fan Upstate.
Ingles.
in the era, Diesel, of NIL and sports gambling. I don't know if you saw this or not, but Auburn senior quarterback Peyton Thorne, who's not very good, on Tuesday, he received a lot of criticism, and it got so bad after the Cal loss that, what's crazy, fans were asking him for money. They were sending Venmo requests to Peyton Thorne. And, the loss, obviously, that Auburn fans had to experience, Diesel, they probably lost money because Cal beat Auburn, and they have the audacity. Can you imagine being a quarterback where you have to go through something like that and get Venmo requests from fans because they lost money on you?
Well, this is a problem that's growing, right? Like, we knew that we had a story a couple of months back where Major League Baseball players who are in the on-deck circle are getting people in the front row yelling at them, saying, I've got $10,000 on you in this at-bat, like absurd amounts of money. And so, number one, it's hard enough hitting a baseball or throwing a pass or whatever. Now you've got people who are hitting you up for money, angry that they lost money on you. They chose to bet. There's, you hear all those commercials for sports gambling. Don't bet money you can't afford to lose. And if you got a problem gambling, it's time to pick up the phone.
Sure.
If you are DMing and Venmo requesting 20-year-old young men because you gambled on them and lost, you officially have a gambling problem.
You think?
Yeah.
I would say you're probably accurate on that. I hate it for Peyton Thorne, not a great quarterback. We know that. However, I don't think any college quarterbacks have to go through that. It's just, that's a little much. However, that's the world we live in today, man. It's brutal, to your point. And by the way, Tolos, no show tomorrow, as we say.
Right.
Oh, how are we going to do it?
You can still get in your upset picks during the show tomorrow, as per usual. But Cole and I will not be here. You're going to have to get your picks in on Friday if you want to make sure they get read on the air.
And Burns football tomorrow night, not Friday night, due to some weather. So those are the programming notes. We will see you on Friday.